Hi everyone. Great to have you here at the Fiction Wizard. Get comfortable because today we're presenting What If Dumbledore Survived. The battle that never was. Before we start, a gentle reminder, if you love stories like this, please like and subscribe. It helps the algorithm show our videos to more people. And now, the moment you've been waiting for. Chapter 1, The Shadow Remains. The wind whipped across the astronomy tower as Severus Snape raised his wand. His face twisted into a mask of pure hatred. "Severus, please." Dumbledore whispered. "Avada Kedavra." Green light erupted from Snape's wand, striking Dumbledore squarely in the chest. The old wizard's body lifted off the ground, suspended for one terrible moment against the sky, before toppling over the battlements and falling out of sight. Harry Potter couldn't breathe. Couldn't move. Couldn't scream. Frozen beneath his invisibility cloak, he watched the moment that would change everything. Except it hadn't. Not really. 3 hours earlier, in Dumbledore's office, a very different conversation had taken place. "Are you absolutely certain this will work?" Snape's voice was tight with tension as he paced before the headmaster's desk. Dumbledore examined his blackened, withered hand with clinical detachment. "The curse is spreading faster than we anticipated. I have perhaps a month left, 2 at most." He looked up, eyes sharp behind half-moon spectacles. "Tonight provides us the perfect opportunity, Severus. The stage is set. It's too risky." Snape stopped pacing. "If the Dark Lord suspects even for a moment, he won't," Dumbledore said simply. "Tom sees what he expects to see. He expects you to kill me tonight to protect young Malfoy's soul. And so you shall, to all appearances." Dumbledore reached into his desk drawer and removed a small crystal vial containing a swirling silver-blue potion. "The draught of living death, modified with my own enhancements." He held it up to the light. "It will slow my bodily functions to such a degree that even the most advanced detection spells will register me as deceased." "And the killing curse?" Snape demanded. Dumbledore smiled faintly. "Ah, that's where your particular brilliance comes in, Severus. The modified nonverbal spell we've been practicing, the one that produces the same green flash and impact sensation of the killing curse, but merely triggers the potion's effects. It's never been tested in actual combat conditions," Snape pointed out. "Then tonight will be its field test." Dumbledore's tone was maddeningly calm. "The moment before you cast, I'll take the potion. Your spell will activate it instantly and provide the necessary theatrics." Snape's face was bloodless. "And if it fails? Then I die tonight rather than a month from now, and your position as Voldemort's most trusted servant is secured." Dumbledore's eyes twinkled. "Either way, I consider it a favorable outcome." "You're insane," Snape whispered. "Perhaps." Dumbledore rose from his chair. "But desperate times call for desperate measures. Harry isn't ready, Severus. He needs more time, more guidance, even if it must come from the shadows. And who else knows of this plan? Only Minerva, after tonight. Someone must retrieve my body before it's examined too closely." Dumbledore moved to Fawkes' perch, stroking the phoenix gently. "She'll know what to do." Now, as Snape looked over the battlements where Dumbledore had fallen, his face was unreadable. The Death Eaters behind him were jubilant, pulling the hesitant Draco Malfoy along as they fled the scene. Snape lingered just long enough to ensure no one was watching before discreetly flicking his wand. Far below, the broken body of Albus Dumbledore shimmered briefly with a preservation charm. Minerva McGonagall's hands shook as she approached the crumpled form on the ground. Around her, students and staff gathered in shocked silence, some openly weeping. Hagrid had fallen to his knees beside the body, his massive shoulders heaving with sobs. "Stand aside," she said, her voice cracking despite her best efforts. "Please, everyone stand aside." "Minerva," Phileas Flitwick touched her arm, his own face streaked with tears. "Perhaps we should wait for the ministry officials." "No. The word came out sharper than she intended. Softening her tone, she added, Albus would have wanted us to handle this ourselves. Without interference. She knelt beside the body, drawing her wand with practiced precision. To everyone watching, it appeared she was simply casting respectful preparation charms for the dead. In reality, she was performing a complex diagnostic spell Dumbledore had taught her just days before. A faint blue glow, invisible to anyone not looking for it, pulsed once beneath the old wizard's skin. It had worked. He lived. Swallowing hard, McGonagall stood. Hagrid, she said gently, would you please carry the headmaster to my office? I think we should prepare him properly before the ministry arrives. Not the hospital wing? Pomona Sprout asked, wiping her eyes. There's nothing Poppy can do for him now, McGonagall said, the literal truth of her statement giving her the strength to maintain the facade. Phileas, please see to the students. Pomona, secure the grounds. I fear the Death Eaters may return. As the staff dispersed to their tasks, McGonagall walked alongside Hagrid, who cradled Dumbledore's body with surprising gentleness. Once inside her office, she locked and warded the door with every protection she knew. "Ya can leave him with me, Professor," Hagrid choked out. "I'll watch over him." "Thank you, Hagrid, but I need to perform certain rituals. Alone." Seeing his crestfallen expression, she softened. It was his explicit request, should this day come. "You understand, don't you?" Reluctantly, Hagrid nodded and shuffled out, leaving McGonagall alone with the supposedly dead headmaster. The moment the door closed, she cast a series of privacy charms, then aimed her wand at Dumbledore's chest. Renervate Maxima. For several agonizing seconds, nothing happened. Then Dumbledore's chest rose with a shallow breath. His eyelids fluttered. "Minerva," he whispered, voice barely audible. "Did it work?" "Perfectly," she confirmed, immediately helping him into a sitting position. "Everyone believes you're dead." Snape's performance was convincing. Dumbledore managed a weak smile. "He always was my most gifted actor." He tried to stand but wobbled dangerously. "Don't you dare," McGonagall scolded, guiding him to her chair. "The potion's effects won't fully wear off for hours." "We don't have hours." Dumbledore's voice was already stronger, his mind clearly racing ahead. "I need you to transfigure something, a convincing replica. My body needs to be seen, mourned, buried." McGonagall pursed her lips disapprovingly but waved her wand at a large wooden chest in the corner. With extraordinary skill, she transformed it into a perfect replica of Dumbledore's body, down to the half-moon spectacles and the blackened hand. "That won't fool a proper magical examination," she warned. "It won't need to," Dumbledore assured her. "I've arranged for certain irregularities in the standard procedures. The official cause of death will be recorded as the killing curse. No further examination will be deemed necessary." McGonagall stared at him. "You've thought of everything, haven't you?" "Not everything," Dumbledore admitted, looking suddenly very old despite his returning vigor. "I've had to improvise much of this plan. Harry's safety remains my primary concern. Potter saw you die, Albus. He was there, under that blasted invisibility cloak of his." Dumbledore's eyes closed briefly. "Yes. That was unfortunate but necessary." He had to believe it too, at least initially. His reaction had to be genuine for Voldemort to believe. "So what now? You hide while the world mourns and the Death Eaters celebrate?" "For a time." Dumbledore's gaze was steady. "Until Harry is ready to know the truth." The days that followed passed in a blur of grief and confusion. The news of Dumbledore's death spread across the wizarding world like wildfire, leaving shock and despair in its wake. His funeral at Hogwarts was attended by hundreds, all unaware that the real Albus Dumbledore watched from a concealed chamber high in the castle, his magic severely limited as his body continued to recover from both the potion and the curse that had blackened his hand. From his hidden vantage point, Dumbledore observed Harry's stoic face throughout the ceremony, noting the determined set of the boy's jaw. "He'll leave soon," Dumbledore murmured to McGonagall, who stood beside him at the enchanted window. "To hunt the Horcruxes. Without guidance. Without protection." McGonagall couldn't keep the worry from her voice. "Albus, he's just a boy. A boy who has consistently risen to challenges that would break most grown wizards," Dumbledore corrected gently. "But you're right, of course. He'll need help." "Then tell him you're alive." "Not yet." Dumbledore turned from the window, moving carefully to a small desk covered in parchments. "Voldemort will be watching him closely now. If Harry's behavior changes suddenly, if the crushing grief he feels miraculously vanishes, Voldemort will know something is amiss. So we let him grieve for nothing." "For a time," Dumbledore repeated. "Just until certain pieces are in place." Those pieces began moving into place faster than even Dumbledore had anticipated. The Ministry fell less than a month after the funeral. Rufus Scrimgeour was killed after refusing to reveal Harry's whereabouts. Pius Thickness, under the Imperius Curse, was installed as minister. And Severus Snape, murderer of Albus Dumbledore, was appointed headmaster of Hogwarts. "It's perfect," Dumbledore remarked when McGonagall brought him the news, her face flushed with anger. "Severus is exactly where he needs to be." "Perfect?" McGonagall nearly shouted. "The Death Eaters have control of Hogwarts. The Carrows are being brought in to discipline the students. And Severus will be there to mitigate the worst of their abuses," Dumbledore countered calmly. "Without raising suspicion." McGonagall sank into a chair, suddenly looking every one of her years. "I don't know if I can continue this charade, Albus. The students look to me for strength, for resistance. Yet I must pretend to merely tolerate Severus rather than work with him openly. It's a burden I wish I could spare you." Dumbledore's tone was genuinely regretful. "But we're reaching a critical juncture. Harry will need to know soon." "Why not now?" "Because now," Dumbledore said, picking up a copy of the Daily Prophet with its blaring headline about Harry being undesirable number 1, "Harry, Ron, and Hermione will be going underground. And before they do, I need to ensure they have the tools they need." Harry stared at the canvas tent flapping gently in the breeze. They'd been at Grimmauld Place for nearly 2 weeks since escaping the wedding, but after Yaxley had grabbed Hermione during their Ministry infiltration, they'd been forced to flee to this forest instead. "We got the locket, at least," Ron said, trying to sound optimistic as he poked at the meager stew bubbling over their campfire. Harry nodded absently, the heavy gold locket hanging around his neck like a deadweight. They had a Horcrux now, sure, but no way to destroy it and no idea where to find the others. "I wish." He started, then stopped himself. "What?" Hermione looked up from the book she was reading. "Nothing. Just. I wish Dumbledore had left us more to go on." The familiar wave of grief washed over him at the mention of Dumbledore's name. 2 months since that night on the tower, and the pain hadn't dulled at all. "He trusted you, Harry," Hermione said gently. "He trusted all of us to figure this out." "Fat lot of good trust does us now," Harry muttered, getting to his feet. "I'm going to check the perimeter." He needed to walk, to clear his head. The weight of their task seemed to grow heavier each day. Find the Horcruxes. Destroy them. Somehow defeat the most powerful dark wizard in history. All while the entire Ministry hunted them. And Dumbledore was gone. Really gone. A twig snapped somewhere to his left. Harry froze, wand instantly in his hand. "Hominum revelio," he whispered. Nothing happened, which meant no humans nearby. But something had definitely moved in the underbrush. Cautiously, Harry advanced, wand raised. A silvery shape materialized between 2 oak trees, a phoenix, glowing with bluish-white light. A Patronus. Harry's heart stopped. He knew that Patronus. The Phoenix opened its beak and spoke in McGonagall's voice, "Potter, do not react visibly to this message. You are being watched, though not at this exact moment. Return to your camp and inform Granger and Weasley that you must all prepare to disapparate in exactly 1 hour. Coordinates to follow." The Phoenix disappeared, leaving Harry standing alone in the darkening forest, mind racing. McGonagall had found them. How? And who was watching them? Fighting to keep his expression neutral, Harry returned to camp. "Everything all right?" Hermione asked, noting his stiff movements. Harry sat down and leaned in close. "No," he whispered. "McGonagall just sent her Patronus. Says we're being watched and need to disapparate in an hour." Ron nearly dropped his spoon. "Bloody hell. How'd she find us?" "I don't know, but she says we're not being watched right this second." Harry glanced nervously at the trees surrounding their small clearing. "We need to pack up." Quietly. With practiced efficiency, Hermione began dismantling their camp, her wand moving in complex patterns as she removed the protective enchantments one by one. Ron doused the fire and packed their meager food supplies. Harry gathered their personal belongings, moving deliberately to avoid appearing rushed to any potential observers. Exactly 55 minutes after the Patronus appeared, McGonagall's voice spoke again, this time seeming to come from the locket around Harry's neck. 52 degrees, 34 minutes north. 1 degree, 58 minutes west. Arrive with wands ready. Harry relayed the coordinates to Hermione, who nodded gravely. "That's somewhere in the Yorkshire Dales," she said. "Remote countryside. Could be a trap," Ron pointed out. "Could be," Harry agreed. "But it's McGonagall. And frankly, sitting here isn't getting us any closer to destroying this." He tapped the locket. "I say we risk it." They joined hands, and with a loud crack, the clearing was empty. They materialized on a windswept hillside. Rain drizzled steadily from a gunmetal sky. In the distance, stone walls crisscrossed green fields, but there wasn't a building in sight. "Wands out," Harry reminded them, though they already had theirs raised. "Mr. Potter." They spun around. Professor McGonagall stood 10 feet away, her tall figure unmistakable despite the heavy traveling cloak she wore. Beside her was a shorter, stockier silhouette that Harry recognized with a jolt. "Aberforth," he said incredulously. Dumbledore's brother grunted in acknowledgement. "Let's not stand about in the rain, shall we? Follow me, and keep quiet." They trudged after the pair, down the hillside and along a narrow sheep track that wound between two rocky outcroppings. Suddenly, where there had appeared to be solid hillside, a doorway shimmered into existence. Quickly, McGonagall urged them inside. The interior was surprisingly spacious, a large stone room with a roaring fire, several comfortable chairs, and a table laid with food that made Ron's stomach growl audibly. "Professor, what's going on?" Harry demanded once the door sealed behind them. "How did you find us? Who's watching us?" McGonagall exchanged a significant look with Aberforth. "I think perhaps you should sit down, Potter." "I don't want to sit down," Harry said, frustration bubbling up. "I want answers." "We're supposed to be, Harry," Hermione interrupted gently, placing a hand on his arm. "Let's hear what they have to say." Reluctantly, Harry took a seat, though he remained perched on its edge, ready to spring up at any moment. McGonagall didn't sit. Instead, she moved to a door at the far end of the room. "There's someone who needs to speak with you," she said, her voice uncharacteristically soft. "Someone who should have done so much sooner." She opened the door. And through it walked Albus Dumbledore. Harry was on his feet instantly, wand aimed directly at the figure's heart. Beside him, Ron had knocked over his chair in shock, and Hermione had clapped both hands over her mouth. "That's impossible," Harry whispered, his voice shaking with rage and disbelief. "You're dead. I saw you die." The Dumbledore figure smiled sadly. You saw what I needed Voldemort to see, Harry. Prove it's you, Harry demanded, wand unwavering. Tell me something only Dumbledore would know. In your first year, when you discovered the Mirror of Erist, I told you I saw myself holding a pair of thick, woolen socks, Dumbledore said calmly. That was not entirely truthful. I saw the same thing you did, my family, whole and happy. Harry's wand hand trembled. Professor Lupin could have told you that. Or Snape. Remus doesn't know, and Severus wouldn't tell, Dumbledore replied. But perhaps this will convince you. When we went to the cave to retrieve what we believed was a Horcrux, I made you promise to force me to keep drinking the potion no matter what happened. And you did, even as I begged you to let me stop. The wand lowered slightly. Anyone who followed us could know that. No one followed us, Harry. And no one but you and I know that in my delirium, I called you Tom and asked you to kill me. The wand clattered to the floor. Harry staggered back, knees hitting the chair behind him. It's not possible, he whispered. I saw Snape kill you. I saw your body. You saw an extraordinarily complex piece of magic performed exactly as planned. Dumbledore stepped further into the room. In the firelight, Harry could see that the old wizard looked different, thinner, somehow, his face more lined, his movements stiffer. But his eyes, those piercing blue eyes, were unmistakably Dumbledore's. But, how? Why? Harry's voice cracked. Dumbledore sighed deeply, finally taking a seat across from the trio. That, Harry, is quite a long story. One that begins with this. He held up his blackened, withered hand. This curse was killing me. Is still killing me, though more slowly than before. I had perhaps a year to live when Severus contained it to my hand alone. By the night on the astronomy tower, that estimate had dwindled to mere months. So you faked your death? Ron blurted out. Bloody hell. Language, Mr. Weasley, McGonagall said automatically, though without her usual sternness. I did, Dumbledore confirmed. With Severus's help. Snape. Harry was on his feet again. Snape helped you. He's a traitor. He murdered you, or was supposed to. Severus acted exactly as I instructed him to, Dumbledore said firmly. He remains our most valuable asset in Voldemort's inner circle. You're saying Snape's still on our side? Harry couldn't keep the disbelief from his voice. After everything he's done? Everything he has done has been at my request, Dumbledore said. Including appearing to murder me in front of Death Eaters and, unfortunately, you. Harry sank back down, mind reeling. I don't understand. Draco Malfoy had been tasked with killing me, Dumbledore explained. A punishment for his father's failures. Severus made an unbreakable vow to protect Draco and, if necessary, complete his task. I was already dying, Harry. I asked Severus to kill me when the moment came, to cement his position in Voldemort's ranks and spare Draco's soul the damage of committing murder. But I saw the killing curse, Harry insisted. I saw the green light. What you saw was an ingenious spell of Severus's own creation, one that mimics the appearance of the killing curse but actually activates a powerful sleeping draft I had taken moments before. I appeared to die, fell from the tower, and was secretly retrieved and revived by Professor McGonagall while everyone believed she was preparing my body for burial. Hermione, who had been uncharacteristically silent, finally spoke. The funeral? The White Tomb. A transfigured replica, McGonagall explained. The real Albus has been recovering in secret, first at Hogwarts and later here, at one of the Dumbledore family properties under Fidelius' charm. Recovering? Harry seized on the word. You're still cursed, then? Dumbledore nodded. Yes, though Severus's continued treatments have slowed its progress considerably. I'm afraid my days of dueling dark wizards are largely behind me. Then what good is you being alive? Harry didn't mean for it to sound so harsh, but the words tumbled out before he could stop them. Rather than looking offended, Dumbledore's eyes twinkled with something like approval. A fair question, Harry. The answer is knowledge and planning. I can now work without Voldemort's awareness, guide your Horcrux hunt more directly, and coordinate the resistance from the shadows. Speaking of Horcruxes, Hermione said hesitantly, we found one, but we have no way to destroy it. She gestured to the locket still hanging around Harry's neck. Ah, yes. Slytherin's locket. Dumbledore leaned forward. I believe you'll find something useful in that bag of yours, Harry. The sword of Gryffindor should have been delivered to your tent approximately 20 minutes after you left. The sword? Harry's eyes widened. But how, Severus, Dumbledore said simply. Following my instructions, though he likely used an elaborate delivery method to maintain his cover. Aberforth, who had been silently watching the exchange with arms folded, finally spoke. If you lot are done with the reunions, perhaps we could discuss what happens next. Some of us have been risking our necks while others have been playing dead. Always direct, my brother, Dumbledore said with a small smile. Yes, let's discuss next steps. Harry, I believe you're wearing one of Voldemort's Horcruxes. Harry nodded, pulling the locket out from under his shirt. Take it off, Dumbledore instructed. It influences the wearer's emotions, making everything seem darker, more hopeless. Harry removed it immediately, feeling a weight lift that wasn't entirely physical. Now, Dumbledore continued, let me tell you what I know about the remaining Horcruxes, and what I believe our best strategy should be. For the next hour, they talked. Dumbledore confirmed Harry's suspicions about Hufflepuff's cup and suggested Ravenclaw's diadem might be another Horcrux. He theorized about Nagini being one as well. I believe Voldemort intended to make 7 in total, Dumbledore explained. The diary and the ring have been destroyed. You have the locket. That leaves the cup, possibly the diadem, Nagini, and one other. Any ideas about the last one? Ron asked. Dumbledore's eyes flicked briefly to Harry's scar, so quickly Harry almost missed it. Several possibilities, but nothing certain. Harry had the distinct impression Dumbledore wasn't telling them everything, but before he could press further, Aberforth interrupted. Dawn's coming soon. They'll need to move to a more permanent safe house if they're staying. Indeed, Dumbledore agreed. I believe Shell Cottage would be suitable. Bill and Fleur's home is already protected by the Fidelius charm. Wait, Harry said. You want us to just stay there? What about hunting the Horcruxes? I want you to destroy that one first, Dumbledore pointed at the locket, and then yes, continue the hunt, but with better information and support. The Order can provide safe houses, intelligence, and protection. Won't Voldemort suspect something if we suddenly have all this help? Hermione asked shrewdly. Dumbledore nodded approvingly. An excellent point, Miss Granger. Which is why our assistance must appear coincidental or the result of your own ingenuity. Severus will continue to feed Voldemort false information about your movements. Harry still couldn't wrap his head around trusting Snape. And what about Hogwarts? The students? The Carrows are brutal, McGonagall said grimly, but with Severus as headmaster, their worst excesses are being curbed without arousing suspicion. Meanwhile, a resistance movement has formed among the students. Neville, Ginny, and Luna, Harry guessed immediately. Among others, McGonagall confirmed. They call themselves Dumbledore's army, though they're unaware how apt the name truly is. Dumbledore stood, moving to the fireplace. For a moment, he looked every one of his 115 years. I made many mistakes, Harry. I kept too many secrets, tried to shoulder too many burdens alone. I won't repeat those mistakes now. He turned, fixing Harry with those piercing blue eyes. I'm asking you to trust me one more time. Let me help you finish this. Harry looked at Ron and Hermione, silently conferring. Ron gave a small nod. Hermione bit her lip, then nodded as well. All right, Harry said finally. But no more secrets. No more half-truths. I need to know everything. Everything I can safely tell you, Dumbledore amended. Some knowledge remains dangerous, Harry, regardless of my past errors in judgment. Harry wanted to argue, but Hermione placed a restraining hand on his arm. It's more than we had yesterday, she said quietly. Fine. Harry took a deep breath. So what's the plan for destroying the locket? Dumbledore smiled. For that, we need the sword of Gryffindor. And fortunately, I know exactly where Severus has hidden it. The following day found Harry, Ron, and Hermione trekking through the snow-covered grounds of what had once been a stately manor house, now reduced to crumbling ruins. According to Dumbledore, the sword had been hidden here by Snape, a location known to the old headmaster through their secret communications. I still don't trust Snape, Harry muttered as they picked their way through fallen stones and snow-laden bushes. Dumbledore does, Hermione pointed out, and that has to count for something. I guess, Harry conceded reluctantly. It's just, hard to forget what I saw on the tower. What you were meant to see, Ron reminded him, bundled up against the cold. Bloody elaborate plan, if you ask me. They reached what appeared to have once been a grand fountain in the center of an overgrown garden. Now it was just a cracked stone basin filled with frozen water and dead leaves. This is it, Harry said, consulting the map Dumbledore had drawn. The sword should be hidden beneath the fountain. Ron groaned. Of course it is. Nothing's ever just sitting out in plain sight, is it? Hermione cast a warming charm on the frozen basin, slowly melting the ice. As the water cleared, something gleamed at the bottom, the ruby-encrusted hilt of Gryffindor's sword. There. Harry pointed excitedly. Wait, Hermione caught his arm before he could reach for it. It can't be this easy. There must be protections. Dumbledore said Snape would have made it accessible to us specifically, Harry reminded her. Still, Hermione insisted, let me check for curses. She waved her wand in complex patterns over the fountain, muttering incantations under her breath. After several minutes, she lowered her wand. Nothing I can detect, but there's something odd about the water. Harry peered into the basin. The melted ice had turned silvery, reflective like a pensieve. I think. Harry began, then stopped as the surface of the water rippled. An image formed, Snape, looking directly up as if he could see them standing there. Potter, the image of Snape sneered. If you're seeing this, it means Dumbledore has sent you for the sword. Typical of him to delegate the dangerous tasks. Ron made an indignant noise, but Harry shushed him. The sword can only be claimed by a true Gryffindor in an act of courage and selflessness, Snape continued. The water is now enchanted to recreate such conditions. One of you must submerge fully to retrieve the sword. The water will induce your worst fears. Overcome them, and the sword is yours. The image faded, leaving just the silvery water and the gleaming sword at the bottom. Your worst fears. Ron looked pale. Bloody hell, why can't anything ever be simple? I'll do it, Harry said immediately, already removing his outer cloak. Harry, no, Hermione protested. We don't know what it will do to you. I've faced boggarts before, Harry pointed out. And dementors. I can handle fear. This isn't the same, Hermione insisted. This is magical water specifically enchanted by Snape. Who's working for Dumbledore? Harry reminded her. Look, we need the sword. I'm doing it. Before they could argue further, Harry kicked off his shoes and waded into the basin. The water was freezing despite Hermione's warming charm, instantly soaking through his jeans and making his legs numb. Be careful, Hermione called anxiously. Harry nodded, took a deep breath, and plunged beneath the surface. Cold engulfed him, then something much worse. Darkness pressed in from all sides as images flashed before his eyes, Ron and Hermione dead at Voldemort's feet. Hogwarts in flames. Ginny's lifeless body in the Chamber of Secrets. Sirius falling through the veil over and over again. Dumbledore plummeting from the tower. But that last image shifted. Dumbledore wasn't dead. He was alive, waiting, helping. Harry clung to that knowledge, using it as an anchor against the nightmarish visions swirling around him. His lungs burned. The sword gleamed just inches from his outstretched fingers. As he grasped its hilt, one final image assaulted him, himself, eyes gleaming red, standing at Voldemort's side as his equal. With a tremendous effort, Harry kicked off from the bottom, sword clutched tightly in his hand. He burst from the water, gasping and sputtering. "Harry!" Hermione helped pull him from the basin. "Are you all right?" He nodded, unable to speak just yet. Ron quickly wrapped him in a blanket conjured from the tip of his wand. "You got it," Ron said, eyeing the sword with something like reverence. "Blimey, you look awful, mate." "Thanks," Harry managed, his teeth chattering. "F feels great too." Once he'd caught his breath and dried off with Hermione's help, Harry held the sword up, examining it in the weak winter sunlight. "Now we can destroy the Horcrux." They placed the locket on a flat stone, and Harry raised the sword above it. "Wait," Ron said suddenly. "It might fight back." The diary did. "He's right," Hermione agreed. "We should be prepared for anything." Harry nodded. "Stand back, both of you. And I think I need to open it first. I'll try using Parseltongue." Ron and Hermione retreated several paces, wands at the ready. Harry focused on the tiny snake engraved on the locket's surface. "Open," he hissed in Parseltongue. The locket clicked open. A dark, malevolent eye stared out from each half, and then a voice that chilled Harry's blood spoke. "I have seen your heart, Harry Potter, and it is mine." A spectral figure rose from the locket, Voldemort, but somehow more handsome, less serpentine than the creature Harry had faced in the graveyard. Behind him appeared shadowy forms of Ron and Hermione, their faces twisted in contempt. "We were never your friends," the shadow Hermione sneered. "Who could love the boy destined to lose?" "Always second best," Shadow Ron taunted. "Never good enough." "They'll all abandon you in the end," the handsome Voldemort said silkily. "Even Dumbledore, who lies to you still." Harry hesitated, the sword suddenly heavy in his hands. "Don't listen." The real Ron shouted from behind him. "It's lying. Destroy it, Harry." That voice, his friend's real voice, broke through the spell. With a cry of rage, Harry brought the sword down hard on the locket. There was a metallic clang, a long, drawn-out scream, and then silence. The locket lay in smoking pieces on the stone. Harry fell to his knees, exhausted. Ron and Hermione rushed forward, kneeling beside him. "You did it!" Hermione exclaimed, examining the destroyed locket. "It's gone." "One down," Harry said grimly, 3 or 4 to go. Ron clapped him on the shoulder. "And now we've got the sword. And Dumbledore." Harry nodded, still processing the fact that Dumbledore was alive. It changed everything, and nothing. They still had to find and destroy the remaining Horcruxes. Voldemort was still hunting them. The war continued. But now, they weren't fighting alone. Severus Snape strode through the corridors of Hogwarts, black robes billowing behind him. Students pressed themselves against the walls as he passed, fear evident in their eyes. Good. Fear kept them safe, from the Carrows, from the Dark Lord's other servants, from their own foolish Gryffindor tendencies toward heroics. He reached the gargoyle guarding the headmaster's office, his office now, though it would never truly feel like his. "Ariana," he murmured, the password known only to him. The gargoyle leapt aside, and Snape ascended the spiral staircase. Once inside, he sealed the door with multiple charms before moving to the seemingly empty portrait frame hanging behind the desk. "They have the sword," he said to the empty canvas. Slowly, Albus Dumbledore faded into view in the portrait. This wasn't the enchanted echo of the dead headmaster that hung in the public area of the office. This was a specially charmed portrait, linked to the real Dumbledore in hiding, allowing them to communicate. Excellent, Dumbledore's portrait said. And the locket? Destroyed. If Potter managed even the simplest task correctly, Snape replied with his habitual sneer, though there was less venom in it than usual. He did, Dumbledore confirmed. I've received word from Minerva. Snape's lips thinned. The Dark Lord grows more paranoid by the day. He's convinced there's a traitor in his inner circle. Is he suspicious of you specifically? No more than he's suspicious of everyone, Snape said. But he's increased security around Nagini. The snake never leaves his side now. Suggesting we were correct about her being a Horcrux, Dumbledore mused. What of the others? Bellatrix still believes her vault at Gringotts is secure. The cup remains there, I'm certain of it. And Hogwarts itself? Dumbledore asked. Have you had any success locating the diadem? Snape shook his head. The castle is vast, and I can hardly be seen searching for it openly. The Carrows watch me almost as closely as the Dark Lord does. Dumbledore sighed. We must find it before Voldemort realizes Harry is hunting Horcruxes. Once he knows, he'll gather them close. Perhaps you should have considered that before sending Potter on this scavenger hunt, Snape said acidly. Perhaps, Dumbledore acknowledged, surprising Snape with his agreement. But what's done is done. We must work with the circumstances we have, not those we wish for. A sudden burning sensation in Snape's left arm made him wince. He's calling. I must go. Be careful, Severus, Dumbledore said, genuine concern in his voice. Your position is more precarious than ever. Snape merely nodded before cancelling the charms on the portrait, leaving it blank once more. As he swept from the office, his thoughts turned to the impossible balancing act he continued to perform, Hogwarts headmaster, Death Eater, and secret agent for a man the world believed dead. The irony that he was protecting James Potter's son while pretending to hunt him was not lost on Snape. Nor was the fact that his every action was still, as always, for Lily. 3 days later, Harry, Ron, and Hermione arrived at Shell Cottage, Bill and Fleur's seaside home. Bill greeted them at the door, his scarred face breaking into a relieved smile. About time, he said, ushering them inside. We've been expecting you since yesterday. Got held up, Ron explained, stamping snow from his boots. Had to make sure we weren't followed. Fleur appeared from the kitchen, embracing each of them in turn. You must be Ungry. Come, I Ave made bouillabaisse. As they settled around the kitchen table, Bill leaned in conspiratorially. So, is it true? The rumors we've been hearing? Harry exchanged glances with Ron and Hermione. Depends on the rumors. That Dumbledore is alive, Bill said in a hushed voice. That he's been directing the order from hiding. Did McGonagall tell you? Hermione asked cautiously. Bill shook his head. No one told us outright. But Dad came back from a meeting 2 days ago looking like he'd seen a ghost. And Kingsley's been giving orders that he says are from the highest authority. Harry hesitated, then nodded. It's true. We've seen him. Fleur nearly dropped the bread she was serving. Mon Dieu. How is this possible? It's complicated, Harry said. But yeah, he's alive. Snape didn't really kill him, or at least, not permanently. Snape, Bill said the name like a curse. You're saying he's actually on our side? After everything he's done? Apparently, Ron said, though he didn't sound entirely convinced either. According to Dumbledore, anyway. This changes everything, Bill muttered, running a hand through his long hair. Not really, Harry countered. We still have the same job to do. Find the Horcruxes, destroy them, then deal with Voldemort. But now we have Dumbledore helping us, Hermione pointed out. And the entire Order knows what we're doing. Which means we need a new plan, Harry agreed. Voldemort will figure out what we're up to eventually. We need to move faster. What exactly are these Horcruxes? Fleur asked. Harry gave them a quick explanation of Horcruxes and their mission, including the destruction of the locket. So you need to get into Gringotts? Bill's expression was grim. Into one of the oldest, deepest vaults, which happens to belong to Bellatrix Lestrange. Basically, yeah, Ron confirmed. Impossible, Bill said flatly. The security's been doubled since you broke into the Ministry. You'd need a goblin's help, and they're not exactly friendly to wizards these days. A familiar voice spoke from the doorway. Perhaps not impossible, just extremely difficult. They all turned to see Remus Lupin standing there, looking tired but smiling slightly. Remus. Harry jumped to his feet. What are you doing here? Delivering news, Lupin said, accepting the seat Fleur hastily offered him. And quite a bit of it. Is it Tonks? The baby? Ron asked. Both fine, Lupin assured them. Tonks is staying with her mother for now, safer that way. His expression grew more serious. I've just come from a meeting with, well, you know who. Voldemort? Harry asked, confused. Lupin gave a startled laugh. No, Harry. Dumbledore. Oh, right. Harry felt his face heat up. It's still strange to say it aloud, Lupin admitted. But yes, I've met with Dumbledore. He's looking better than when I first saw him a month ago, nearly gave me a heart attack, by the way. So what's the news? Hermione asked eagerly. Several things, Lupin said, accepting the tea Fleur offered him. First, we believe we've located another Horcrux, Ravenclaw's diadem. It's at Hogwarts, as Dumbledore suspected. At Hogwarts? Harry repeated incredulously. All this time. Hidden in what the house elves call the come-and-go room, Lupin explained. Or as you know it, the room of requirement. Harry's mind flashed back to the cluttered room where he'd hidden the Half-Blood Prince's potions book. Of course, he breathed. It was right there. Snape is working on retrieving it, but it's difficult with the Carrows watching his every move. So we'll have to go in ourselves, Harry concluded. Lupin nodded. Eventually, yes. But there's more. We've identified a potential way into Gringotts. Hermione leaned forward eagerly. How? Polyjuice potion, Lupin said simply. We have several of Bellatrix's hairs, collected during your escape from Malfoy Manor. We were never at Malfoy Manor, Ron pointed out, confused. Lupin blinked. Ah, of course. Different timeline. In our current reality, you were captured by Snatchers last week and taken to Malfoy Manor. You escaped with the help of Dobby the house elf, who unfortunately died in the process. A heavy silence fell over the table. Dobby's dead? Harry whispered, grief washing over him for a friend he hadn't even known was in danger in this timeline. I'm sorry, Lupin said gently. I forgot you wouldn't know. How can you forget? Ron demanded. It only happened last week. Because for us, it didn't happen, Hermione realized slowly. When Dumbledore survived, it changed everything. We took different paths, made different choices. Precisely, Lupin confirmed. The timeline has diverged significantly. In the original sequence of events, you spent months camping, eventually were captured, taken to Malfoy Manor, and barely escaped with Dobby's help. In this version, with Dumbledore alive and guiding us, we intercepted you much earlier. Harry struggled to process this. People had lived and died in a timeline that no longer existed for him. It was too much to comprehend. So Dobby is alive, he asked finally. Yes, Lupin assured him. He's currently at Hogwarts, helping the student resistance smuggle food into their hideout in the Room of Requirement. Relief flooded through Harry. Thank Merlin for that, at least. The point is, Lupin continued, we have what we need for the Gringotts plan. Hermione will pose as Bellatrix, Ron can be disguised as a foreign wizard accompanying her, and Harry will use the invisibility cloak. When? Harry asked. 2 days from now, Lupin replied. A goblin named Griphook has reluctantly agreed to help us, for a price. The sword, Harry guessed immediately. Lupin looked surprised. Yes, actually. How did you know? Just a feeling, Harry said, remembering how things had played out in that other timeline Lupin had mentioned. But we need the sword to destroy Horcruxes. Dumbledore has thought of that, Lupin assured him. There are alternatives, basilisk venom being the primary one. He's arranged for a secure container of it to be delivered here tomorrow. Harry nodded, thoughts racing. They had destroyed one Horcrux, knew where 2 more were, and had plans to retrieve them both. For the first time, their mission felt organized, achievable. What about the last one? He asked. And Nagini? Nagini will be the most difficult, Lupin acknowledged. She never leaves Voldemort's side now. As for the last one. He hesitated, glancing at Harry's scar. What? Harry pressed, noticing the look. Lupin, what aren't you telling me? Lupin sighed. Dumbledore believes the final Horcrux may be connected to you, Harry. He's still researching possibilities. Harry touched his scar unconsciously. A terrible suspicion was forming in his mind, but he pushed it away. Fine. Let's focus on the ones we know about first. Lupin nodded, clearly relieved to move on. There's one more thing you should know. Voldemort has realized something is wrong. Snape reports he's checking on his Horcruxes, starting with the Gaunt Shack. So we're in a race, Harry concluded grimly. Yes, Lupin confirmed. And it's one we cannot afford to lose. As the conversation turned to the specifics of their Gringotts plan, Harry found himself staring out the cottage window at the dark sea beyond. Dumbledore was alive, their mission had changed, and somewhere out there, Voldemort was starting to realize his precious soul fragments were in danger. The endgame was approaching faster than any of them had anticipated. And Harry couldn't shake the feeling that despite all their new advantages, something terrible still waited for him at the finish line. But this time, at least, he wasn't facing it alone. Chapter 2, Paths Diverge. Harry crouched behind a marble pillar, his heart hammering against his ribs. The invisibility cloak covered him completely, but that wouldn't matter if they triggered any more security measures. Beside him, Ron shifted nervously in his foreign wizard disguise, a beard charmed to his face, hair darkened, features altered with subtle transfiguration spells. Ahead of them, Hermione strode confidently across Gringotts' main floor, every inch the imperious Bellatrix Lestrange. Her posture was rigid, chin tilted upward with that distinctive black family arrogance. The Polyjuice transformation was flawless, but Harry's stomach clenched watching her. Being inside Bellatrix's skin had to be horrifying. Madame Lestrange, a goblin stepped into her path, eyes narrowed suspiciously. We weren't expecting you today. Hermione's hand tightened on her wand, Bellatrix's wand, recovered during an order raid. You dare question me, she snarled, the words dripping with contempt. My business at my vault is none of your concern. Harry held his breath. They'd rehearsed this moment for hours, but Hermione's acting skills were being pushed to their limits. The goblin hesitated, then bowed stiffly. Of course. However, identification is required. Standard procedure. Shit. They hadn't planned for this. Imperious, whispered a voice from behind Harry. Griphook, their reluctant goblin accomplice, had emerged from his hiding spot. His finger pointed discreetly toward an older goblin behind the main counter. Harry understood immediately. Slipping his wand from beneath the cloak, he aimed it at the senior goblin. Imperio, he whispered, hating himself for using an unforgivable but seeing no alternative. A strange sensation flowed through his arm as the curse connected. He could feel the goblin's mind, resistant at first, then yielding. Carefully, Harry implanted a simple suggestion. The senior goblin suddenly looked up. Bogrod, assist Madame Lestrange immediately. She is expected. The suspicious goblin turned, surprised. But sir, the security protocols have been satisfied, the senior goblin replied firmly. Take her down immediately. Bogrod hesitated only a moment longer before bowing to Hermione. This way, Madame Lestrange. Harry exhaled slowly. First hurdle cleared. He nudged Ron, and they followed Hermione and Bogrod toward the carts, Griphook slipping in behind them. As they descended into the depths of Gringotts, Harry's thoughts wandered to the previous day's conversation with Dumbledore, the frustrating, circular argument that had left him fuming. There's something you're not telling me about the Horcruxes, Harry had insisted, pacing Dumbledore's hidden room at Shell Cottage. Something about me. Dumbledore had looked tired, the blackened hand resting in his lap. Harry, there are theories I'm still exploring. Sharing incomplete information would only, don't, Harry had cut him off. Don't give me that, for your own good, speech again. We agreed, no more secrets. Some knowledge is dangerous before you're ready to receive it, Dumbledore had replied calmly. I'm breaking into Gringotts tomorrow. When exactly will I be ready? Dumbledore's sigh had been heavy with resignation. After you retrieve the cup. Then we'll talk, about everything. Now, as the cart hurtled deeper into the earth, Harry wondered what revelation awaited him. Something about his scar, obviously. Something Dumbledore feared telling him. The cart screeched to a halt before an enormous dragon. The creature was pale, almost blind, chains restraining its massive body. Harry felt a surge of pity mixed with fear. Clankers, Bogrod demanded automatically. Griphook produced the metal instruments from his pocket, handing them over. The harsh, clanging noise made the dragon retreat, conditioned through years of cruel training. They approached the Lestrange vault, Bogrod pressing his palm against the door. It melted away, revealing towering piles of gold, jewels, and artifacts collected over centuries. We need to hurry, Griphook hissed. The thief's downfall is disabled temporarily, but they'll reset it soon. Where would the cup be? Ron whispered, staring at the mountainous treasure. Harry scanned the vault desperately. There. He pointed toward a small gold cup with two handles, perched on a high shelf. That's it, Hufflepuff's cup. As Hermione raised her wand to summon it, Griphook grabbed her arm. No magic. Everything is cursed, Gemino and Flagranti. Touch anything, it multiplies and burns. How are we supposed to get it then? Ron demanded. Very carefully, Harry replied, moving forward cautiously. What followed was a nightmarish game of magical Jenga. Harry inched between towering columns of treasure, every brush against metal creating searing pain and multiplying duplicates that threatened to bury them alive. The heat grew unbearable as more burning metal accumulated around their ankles. Finally, inches from the cup, Harry realized he couldn't reach it without touching something else. Making a split-second decision, he levitated the sword of Gryffindor from the bag at Hermione's side. Harry, what are you? She began. He slipped the sword through the cup's handle and carefully, agonizingly, lifted it free. The cup slid down the blade into his waiting hand. Got it, he cried triumphantly. Wonderful, Griphook sneered. The sword, please. As agreed. Harry hesitated. They still needed the sword to destroy the cup. An alarm suddenly blared, echoing through the caverns. Griphook's eyes widened. They know. Give me the sword now. After we get out, Harry countered. Griphook lunged for the sword. Harry jerked back instinctively, knocking over a jeweled goblet. Instantly, the vault erupted in burning, multiplying treasure. Scalding metal pressed in from all sides. The door. Hermione screamed, dragging Bogrod forward. The goblin, still imperious, pressed his palm against the wall, reopening the vault. They spilled out onto the narrow ledge, the dragon roaring as guards shouted in the distance. Griphook made another grab for the sword. "We had a deal, Potter. And I'll honor it," Harry promised, "once we're safe." Hermione's eyes suddenly lit up. "The dragon," she said, a wild plan forming. "We can use the dragon." Ron looked at her like she'd gone mad. "Use it how, exactly?" Instead of answering, Hermione aimed her wand at the dragon's chains. Relatio. The restraints shattered. The dragon, momentarily confused by its sudden freedom, reared up. "Are you mental?" Ron shouted, but Hermione was already scrambling onto the dragon's back, her polyjuice disguise beginning to fade as Bellatrix's features melted away. "Climb on," she yelled. "It's our only way out." Harry didn't hesitate. Clutching the cup tightly, he scrambled up behind Hermione, pulling Ron after him. Griphook made one last desperate lunge for the sword. "Our deal, Potter." "Here." Harry tossed the sword, but deliberately wide. As Griphook dove for it, the dragon, sensing movement, swung its massive head around. What happened next was chaos. The dragon, sensing freedom, surged upward. Fire erupted from its jaws, scorching the approaching guards. Rock cracked and shattered as the creature smashed through the narrow passages, climbing higher and higher. Harry clung desperately to the dragon's scales as they crashed through the bank's marble floor, erupting into the main atrium amid screaming customers and frantically casting goblins. With a final, earth-shaking roar, the dragon burst through the ceiling and into the open air of Diagon Alley. Harry caught one glimpse of the destruction below, goblins and wizards staring upward in shock, the glittering debris of Gringotts' shattered dome raining down. Then they were soaring over London, the wind whipping their faces as the dragon climbed higher into the clouds. That, Ron shouted over the wind, his fake beard half torn away, was completely mental. Hermione, now fully herself again, managed a shaky laugh. But it worked. Harry gripped the Horcrux tightly, feeling the dark magic pulsing against his palm. 2 down, 3 to go. If they could just destroy this one quickly. But first, they had to get off a dragon in mid-flight. Albus Dumbledore sat in a hidden chamber behind the headmaster's office, reviewing intelligence reports from Order members. His blackened hand throbbed dully, a constant reminder of his borrowed time. The door slid open, admitting Severus Snape. The younger wizard's face was drawn, dark circles beneath his eyes. "They've done it," Snape announced without preamble. "Potter and his friends escaped Gringotts with Hufflepuff's cup." "On a dragon, I understand," Dumbledore remarked, eyes twinkling slightly despite the gravity of the situation. Snape's lip curled. "Subtle as always. The Dark Lord is displeased." "I imagine so." Dumbledore set down his reports. "How badly?" "He killed 6 goblins personally. 2 Death Eaters who were supposed to be monitoring Gringotts were also disposed of." Snape sank into a chair, uncharacteristically showing fatigue. "He knows, Albus. He knows they're hunting Horcruxes." Dumbledore nodded grimly. "We expected this. He'll check the others immediately. He already has. The locket's location was compromised. He's moving Nagini to the Malfoy estate under heavy protection while he personally inspects Hogwarts." Dumbledore's eyebrows rose sharply. "When?" "Tonight. He believes something of value may be hidden in the castle." "The diadem." Dumbledore rose to his feet. "We must find it first." "I've been searching the Room of Requirement for weeks," Snape reminded him. "It's an impossible task, the room contains centuries of hidden objects." "Then we need someone who knows exactly what we're looking for." Dumbledore moved to a small cabinet, removing a vial of swirling memories. "Someone who was there when Tom Riddle hid it." Snape's eyes widened in understanding. "The Grey Lady. Helena Ravenclaw, yes." Dumbledore held the memory vial to the light. "These are my conversations with her over the years, never directly about the diadem, but perhaps there are clues I missed. There's no time for research, Snape snapped. The Dark Lord comes tonight. Then we must accelerate our plans. Dumbledore turned to face his spy directly. Contact the Order. Tell them to prepare for evacuation of the younger students. And Severus, find Harry. Tell him it's time to return to Hogwarts. You did what? McGonagall's voice echoed through the small cottage kitchen. Harry, Ron, and Hermione sat at the table, clothes still singed and torn from their dragon escape. They'd managed to jump into a lake when the dragon descended for water, swimming to shore before operating to this latest safe house, an Order member's abandoned cottage in the Welsh countryside. We got the cup, Harry said defensively, pushing the Horcrux across the table. That's what matters. By releasing a dragon in the middle of Diagon Alley. McGonagall looked ready to assign detention out of pure habit. The statute of secrecy violations alone, Minerva, Lupin interjected gently, perhaps we should focus on the Horcrux itself. How do we destroy it without the sword? Basilisk venom, Hermione replied promptly. Professor Dumbledore was supposed to send some. McGonagall's expression tightened. There's been a complication. Dumbledore's location was nearly compromised last night. Harry straightened immediately. What happened? Nagini, McGonagall said grimly. The snake detected traces of Dumbledore's magic during a meeting at Malfoy Manor. Severus was forced to claim the magical signature was residual from examining Dumbledore's wand, which he supposedly took after the astronomy tower. Did Voldemort believe him? Hermione asked anxiously. Seemingly, but he's suspicious. Severus was subjected to legilimency. He managed to protect the most crucial secrets, but it was difficult. The unspoken message was clear, Snape had suffered for maintaining his cover. So where's Dumbledore now? Ron asked. Secure, but unable to transport the basilisk venom as planned. McGonagall's lips pressed into a thin line. Which means we need an alternative method. Fiendfire? Hermione suggested reluctantly. Too dangerous, Lupin replied immediately. None of us can control it well enough. Harry stared at the cup, frustration building. So close, yet still out of reach. What about the Chamber of Secrets? There must still be basilisk fangs down there. Hogwarts is crawling with Death Eaters, McGonagall reminded him. The Carrows patrol every corridor, and students are under strict curfew. But if we could get in somehow. Harry began. A silver doe suddenly materialized in the center of the room, Snape's Patronus. It spoke with his voice, devoid of its usual disdain. The Dark Lord comes to Hogwarts tonight. He knows about the Horcruxes. The diadem must be found immediately. Potter is needed at the castle. Use the Hog's Head passage. Aberforth is waiting. The Patronus dissolved, leaving stunned silence in its wake. Tonight? Hermione whispered. But we haven't destroyed the cup yet. We'll have to do it at Hogwarts, Harry decided, already on his feet. The Chamber of Secrets is our best option anyway. This could be a trap, McGonagall warned. Harry shook his head. Voldemort doesn't know Snape's true loyalty. And we need to get that diadem before he does. I'll alert the Order, Lupin said, already casting his own Patronus. We'll meet you at the Hog's Head. Harry looked at Ron and Hermione, who had risen to stand beside him. Despite their exhaustion, their faces showed grim determination. Back to Hogwarts, then, Ron said, attempting a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Back to Hogwarts, Harry agreed. Aberforth Dumbledore's scowl deepened as Harry, Ron, and Hermione tumbled through his fireplace. The Floo connection had been established specifically for this moment, a direct, untraceable line from the safe house. About bloody time, the old barman grumbled. My brother's been driving me mad with his messages. Is he here? Harry asked, brushing soot from his clothes. No, thank Merlin. One Dumbledore per building is my limit. Aberforth jerked his head toward a portrait of a young girl. Your passage to the castle is through there. The room of requirement has become a hideout for students resisting the Carrows. The portrait swung open, revealing a long tunnel. Who's in there? Ron asked. Half of Dumbledore's army, last I checked. Led by your sister, Aberforth added with a nod to Ron. Fiery one, that girl. Ron's face lit up. Ginny's okay. Define okay, Aberforth replied dryly. She's alive and fighting, but the Carrows have put prices on the heads of anyone associated with you lot. Before they could respond, multiple cracks of apparition sounded outside. Aberforth cursed, peering through the grimy window. Death Eaters, sealing off Hogsmeade. They must know you're coming. He turned back to them, suddenly all business. Go, now. I'll hold them off. But, Hermione began. Go. Aberforth roared, drawing his wand as the front door exploded inward. Harry grabbed Hermione's arm, pulling her toward the tunnel. Come on. They scrambled into the passage as spells flashed behind them. The portrait swung shut, muffling the sounds of battle. They ran through the narrow tunnel, wands lit, the cup clutched in Harry's free hand. Will he be all right? Hermione panted as they ran. He's Dumbledore's brother, Harry replied, hoping he sounded more confident than he felt. He can handle himself. After what seemed like miles, the tunnel began to slope upward. They emerged through another portrait into a large, crowded room Harry recognized immediately, the room of requirement, but transformed. Hammocks hung from the ceiling. House banners decorated the walls. Tables overflowed with books, maps, and what looked like radio equipment. And everywhere, students. Dozens of them, from all houses except Slytherin, their faces turning toward the new arrivals in shock. Harry. Neville Longbottom rushed forward, barely recognizable. His face was bruised and cut, his hair longer, his entire bearing different, harder, more confident despite the injuries. You're here. You're actually here. Neville grabbed Harry in a fierce hug, then pumped Ron's hand before embracing Hermione too. We knew you'd come back eventually. Harry. A familiar voice called from the back of the crowd. The students parted, revealing Ginny Weasley, her expression a mixture of disbelief and joy. Ron moved first, pushing past Harry to sweep his sister into a hug. Bloody hell, Ginny. Over Ron's shoulder, Ginny's eyes met Harry's. For a heartbeat, everything else faded away, the room, the mission, the war. Then reality crashed back as Luna Lovegood appeared beside Ginny. Hello Harry, she said serenely, as if they'd merely been away on holiday. You look awful. Are those Raxpert bites? Despite everything, Harry laughed. Good to see you too, Luna. What's happening? Neville asked, suddenly serious. The whole castle's on edge. Snape called an emergency assembly, and the Carrows are patrolling like mad. Voldemort's coming, Harry said bluntly. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Tonight. He's looking for something hidden in the castle, something we need to find first. What is it? Ginny asked, moving to stand beside Neville. Ravenclaw's diadem, Hermione explained. It's a Horcrux, a piece of Voldemort's soul. We have to destroy it before he gets here. Ravenclaw's diadem? Luna tilted her head curiously. But it's been lost for centuries. Not lost, Harry corrected. Hidden. Here at Hogwarts. In this very room, actually, a new voice joined the conversation. Everyone turned. Standing in a previously empty corner, looking exhausted but composed, was Albus Dumbledore. The room erupted in chaos. Students cried out in shock, some backing away as if seeing a ghost, others rushing forward only to be held back by those with more caution. Impossible. It can't be. Dumbledore? Harry moved through the stunned crowd toward his mentor. "I thought you were staying hidden," he said quietly. "Circumstances change," Dumbledore replied, his blackened hand concealed within his robe sleeve. "When one is already living on borrowed time, certain risks become acceptable." Neville stepped forward, wand half raised. "Prove you're really him," he demanded, voice steady despite his obvious shock. Dumbledore smiled gently. "Mr. Longbottom, in your 3rd year, you wrote down the Gryffindor passwords and lost them, allowing Sirius Black access to the tower. I never told anyone that I found your list of self-recriminations afterward, 14 feet of parchment detailing ways you had failed your house. I burned it and left you a chocolate frog instead." Neville's wand lowered, his eyes wide. "It is you." "How?" Ginny demanded, finding her voice. "We all saw your funeral. You're buried by the lake." "A necessary deception," Dumbledore replied simply. "One that has allowed me to work against Voldemort from the shadows." He looked around the room at the young faces staring at him in awe. "But explanations must wait. We have precious little time before Tom arrives." The diadem, Harry brought them back to the immediate task. "You said it's in this room?" "Not precisely this version of the room," Dumbledore clarified. "This is the room of requirement as a sanctuary. We need it to become the room of hidden things." "I know that room," Harry exclaimed. "That's where I hid the Half-Blood Prince's potions book last year." Dumbledore's eyes twinkled briefly. "Yes, well, among the many items concealed there over the centuries is Ravenclaw's diadem. Tom found it during his brief return to Hogwarts years ago and transformed it into a Horcrux. So we need the room to change," Hermione concluded. "Everyone needs to leave so we can reformulate it." "Not everyone," Dumbledore countered. "We need someone who knows precisely what the diadem looks like." He turned to Luna. "Miss Lovegood, would you fetch the Grey Lady? Helena Ravenclaw may be our best hope of identifying it quickly." Luna nodded and slipped out through a door that appeared specifically for her exit. "The rest of you," Dumbledore addressed the room, his voice taking on the commanding tone Harry remembered from school announcements, "must prepare. Voldemort comes with an army, and Hogwarts must be defended." Neville straightened. "Dumbledore's army is ready, sir." "I'm gratified to hear it, Mr. Longbottom, but this is not merely your fight." Dumbledore's expression grew grave. "The Order of the Phoenix is already mobilizing. Professor McGonagall and the staff will activate the castle's ancient defenses. But the younger students must be evacuated immediately." "Through the Hog's Head?" Ginny asked. "No longer safe," Dumbledore shook his head. "Death Eaters have surrounded Hogsmeade. We'll use the Room of Requirement to create a passage to the Hogwarts Express instead." As students began organizing themselves, Dumbledore drew Harry, Ron, and Hermione aside. "We need to divide our efforts," he said quietly. "The diadem must be found, but we also have another Horcrux to destroy." He nodded toward the cup Harry still carried. "We were thinking the Chamber of Secrets," Hermione explained. "For basilisk fangs." "An excellent plan," Dumbledore agreed. "Harry, you and Miss Granger should accompany me to find the diadem. Mr. Weasley, perhaps you and Miss Weasley could retrieve the fangs. Your sister knows the castle's current patrol patterns better than anyone." Ron nodded, though Harry noticed he looked uneasy at the idea of splitting up again. "What about warning the professors?" "Already done," Dumbledore assured him. "Minerva is gathering the staff as we speak." Luna returned, accompanied by the silvery form of the Grey Lady, who hovered reluctantly at the room's edge. "Helena," Dumbledore greeted her gently. "Thank you for coming. We need your help." The ghost regarded him coldly. "You died, headmaster. Yet here you stand. Are you ghost or man?" "Still man, though perhaps not for much longer," Dumbledore replied candidly. "I seek the diadem you once stole from your mother." Helena bristled, silver form flickering with emotion. I have told no one where it lies. Tom Riddle found it, Harry interjected, stepping forward. He defiled it with dark magic. He's coming back for it tonight. The Grey Lady's expression shifted from haughty to horrified. The boy with the charming smile. He promised to destroy it. He lied, Harry said simply. Help us find it first. Helena seemed to struggle internally before finally nodding. I can recognize it. Nothing else bears my mother's enchantments. Thank you, Harry said sincerely. He turned to the others. Let's move. Ron, Ginny, Chamber of Secrets. Luna, can you help the evacuation? Luna nodded dreamily. The Thestrals will help too, I think. As the room erupted into purposeful activity, Harry felt the familiar weight of leadership settling onto his shoulders. But this time, glancing at Dumbledore beside him, he wasn't carrying it alone. The corridors of Hogwarts were eerily quiet as Ron and Ginny made their way toward Moaning Myrtle's bathroom. They moved cautiously, pausing at intersections to check for patrols. This is mental, Ron whispered as they ducked behind a tapestry to avoid Filch. Dumbledore alive, you know who coming here, us breaking into the Chamber of Bloody Secrets. Ginny's face was pale but determined. At least we're doing something. This past year has been torture, watching the Carrows hurt first years, Snape pretending to be evil. Wait, you knew about Snape? Ron interrupted, surprised. Not officially, but I've suspected for months. The Carrows wanted to use the Cruciatus Curse during detentions. Snape insisted on traditional methods instead, you know, cleaning trophies, scrubbing floors. He'd act furious when students escaped serious punishment on technicalities he himself created. Ron shook his head, amazed. Bloody good actor, then. Had to be, Ginny replied as they continued moving. So, you and Harry and Hermione, hunting Horcruxes all this time? Yeah. Not very successfully until Dumbledore turned up alive. And you and Hermione? Ginny asked casually. Too casually. Ron's ears reddened. What about us? Oh come on, Ron. Even from your sporadic Patronus messages, it was obvious something was happening between you two. It's complicated, Ron mumbled. What about you and Harry? Ginny's expression hardened slightly. Also complicated. Hard to maintain a relationship when your boyfriend is undesirable number one. Before Ron could respond, voices echoed from around the corner. They froze, pressing against the wall. Told you, Amicus, they were spotted in Hogsmeade, a harsh female voice hissed. Alecto Carrow. And I'm telling you, the Dark Lord wants us at the entrance gates, her brother responded. Potter won't get far if he shows his face. The footsteps receded. Ron and Ginny exhaled simultaneously. They know Harry's coming, Ginny whispered. They're always a step behind, Ron replied with more confidence than he felt. Come on, we're almost there. They reached Moaning Myrtle's bathroom without further incident. The ghost herself was nowhere to be seen, thankfully. So, Ginny said, staring at the sink with its tiny snake engraving, how do we get in? Neither of us speaks Parseltongue. Ron frowned, concentrating. Harry opened the locket by hissing at it. I was there. Maybe if I try to imitate the sound. He made several hissing noises, each more ridiculous than the last. Nothing happened. That was terrible, Ginny said, fighting a smile despite the tense situation. You try then, Ron challenged. Ginny stepped forward, studying the snake carving intently. She closed her eyes, seeming to focus, then produced a series of soft, sibilant hisses that sounded remarkably authentic. The sink began to move. Ron gaped at his sister. How did you? I was possessed by Tom Riddle for nearly a year, Ginny replied grimly. I picked up a few things. The chamber entrance gaped before them, dark and foreboding. After you, Ron said weakly. Ginny conjured a ball of light and sent it floating down ahead of them. Together, she corrected, taking her brother's hand. They descended into the darkness, toward the chamber where Ginny had nearly died 5 years earlier. Neither spoke of the irony that they were now returning voluntarily, or the courage it took for Ginny especially to face this place again. The skeleton of the basilisk lay where Harry had left it, massive and eerily intact. Its fangs gleamed in the wandlight, still lethal after all this time. "Blimey," Ron whispered, approaching the enormous skull cautiously. "Harry killed this thing when he was 12. With Fawkes' help, Ginny reminded him, though her voice held unmistakable pride. She knelt by the skull, carefully prying loose one of the fangs. "How many do we need?" "As many as we can carry," Ron decided, conjuring a bag. "We have the cup, plus the diadem if they find it. And there's still the snake." They worked quickly, collecting nearly a dozen fangs in total. As Ginny placed the last one in the bag, Ron pulled Hufflepuff's cup from his pocket. "Reckon we should destroy this one now?" he asked. Ginny eyed the cup warily. "What happens when you destroy a Horcrux?" "They fight back," Ron said, remembering the locket's desperate defense. "They show you things, try to get in your head. Then we do it together," Ginny decided, placing the cup on the stone floor. "I've had enough of Tom Riddle in my head to last a lifetime." She handed Ron a fong. He knelt beside the cup, hesitating. What if it shows stuff about Hermione?" he asked quietly. Understanding dawned in Ginny's eyes. "I'll close my eyes," she promised. "But Ron, whatever it shows you, it's not real. It's what you fear, not what's true." Ron nodded, gripping the fong tightly. "Here goes nothing." He raised his arm to strike, but before the fong could touch gold, the cup began to vibrate. Black smoke poured from it, coalescing into a familiar figure, Harry, but not Harry. This version had cold eyes and a cruel smile. "Ron Weasley," the apparition said mockingly. "Always second best. Always the sidekick." "Don't listen," Ginny urged, though her face had gone white at the sight. "Smoke," Harry continued, his voice distorting, becoming higher, colder, more like Voldemort's. "She never wanted you. How could she? Brilliant Hermione Granger and the boy who always fails." The smoke shifted, forming a new scene, Hermione and Harry together, laughing about Ron behind his back. "You left them in the forest," the voice hissed. "Abandoned them when they needed you most. They're better without you." Ron's hand shook, the fong wavering. Beside him, Ginny squeezed his shoulder. "It's lying," she said fiercely. "Harry loves you like a brother." "Hermione, settled for you out of pity," the apparition finished cruelly. "When I kill Potter, she'll forget you ever existed." Something snapped in Ron, not toward despair, but anger. White-hot, clarifying anger. "You know what?" he growled, rising to his feet. "I'm done letting you in my head. I left once. I came back. I'm still here, fighting you. And I'm not the bloody sidekick anymore." With a roar of defiance, he plunged the fong into the cup. The apparition screamed, black smoke writhing in agony before dissipating. The cup sizzled where the venom touched it, a dark fluid leaking out like blood. Then silence. Ron stood breathing heavily, the destroyed cup at his feet. Ginny approached cautiously, placing a hand on his arm. "You okay?" "Yeah," Ron replied, surprised to find it was true. "Actually, I am." He looked at his sister with newfound appreciation. "You did this when you were 11? Fought him in your head?" "Every day," Ginny said softly. "It gets easier." Ron pulled her into a tight hug. "You're bloody brilliant, you know that." "About time you noticed," she replied, her smile returning. "Now let's get these fangs to Harry. We've got more Horcruxes to kill." The room of hidden things was a labyrinth of towering junk, furniture stacked to the ceiling, books piled haphazardly, objects from centuries of Hogwarts history crammed into impossible spaces. Harry, Hermione, and Dumbledore moved through the narrow pathways, the Grey Lady floating ahead of them. "How are we supposed to find anything in here?" Hermione whispered, overwhelmed by the sheer volume of hidden items. "Helena knows her mother's creation," Dumbledore replied quietly. "The diadem has a magical signature unlike anything else in this room." The ghost paused at an intersection of pathways, her silvery form flickering with concentration. "This way," she indicated, drifting to the right. "I sense a corruption. A twisting of my mother's magic." They followed her through the maze until she stopped before a tarnished tiara perched atop a discolored bust. The diadem was small, delicate-looking despite the grime of centuries. "That's it," Helena confirmed, keeping her distance. "My mother's diadem. Wisdom beyond measure." Her voice trailed off sadly. Harry approached cautiously. "Can you feel it, Professor?" "The Horcrux?" Dumbledore nodded gravely. "Indeed. The same dark magic as the ring, the locket, the cup. But Harry, you must not touch it directly. The ring nearly killed me when I was careless." Hermione conjured a silk cloth. "We can wrap it in this." As Harry carefully lifted the diadem using the cloth, a sudden tremor shook the room. Dust rained down from the towering piles. "What was that?" Hermione gasped. Dumbledore's expression darkened. "He's here. Voldemort has arrived at Hogwarts." Another tremor, stronger this time, causing a nearby stack of chairs to topple. The Grey Lady vanished with a frightened wail. "We need to get back to the others," Harry said urgently, securing the wrapped diadem in his pocket. They hurried through the shifting maze, objects crashing down around them as the castle shook. Just as they reached the exit, the door burst open. Draco Malfoy stood there, pale and wide-eyed, flanked by Crabbe and Goyle. "Potter." Malfoy's wand came up automatically, then faltered as he registered Dumbledore's presence. "It's true," he whispered. "You're alive." "Mr. Malfoy," Dumbledore acknowledged calmly. "I believe we find ourselves at another crossroads." Crabbe showed no such hesitation. "Avada Kedavra," he bellowed, the killing curse shooting wildly past Harry's ear. "Stupefy." Hermione countered, dropping Goyle immediately. Chaos erupted. Spells flew in all directions, igniting stacks of books, shattering ancient furniture. Harry ducked behind a cabinet, returning fire as Crabbe continued casting increasingly deadly curses. "Stop!" Malfoy shouted at Crabbe. "The Dark Lord wants Potter alive." "Screw that," Crabbe snarled. "Imagine the reward if we kill Dumbledore for real this time." Dumbledore himself remained eerily calm, deflecting spells with minimal movement despite his weakened state. "Mr. Crabbe, that wand movement is dangerously imprecise for the spell you're attempting. Shut up." Crabbe roared. "Fiend fire." Horror dawned on Malfoy's face. "No, you idiot, too late." Cursed fire erupted from Crabbe's wand, not a controlled jet but a monstrous, living inferno that immediately escaped his control. Flaming serpents and chimeras devoured everything in their path, the magical fire multiplying exponentially. "Out!" Dumbledore commanded, his voice cutting through the roar of flames. "Everyone out, now!" Harry grabbed Hermione's arm, pulling her toward the door as the fire surged after them. Malfoy was dragging a stunned Goyle, his face contorted with terror. Crabbe had vanished in the smoke. They burst into the corridor, Dumbledore sealing the door behind them with a powerful charm. Even so, fire licked at the edges, threatening to break through. "The diadem?" Dumbledore asked sharply. Harry patted his pocket, finding it empty. "It must have fallen during the fight." Before anyone could respond, an agonized scream echoed from within the room, Crabbe, trapped by his own cursed fire. Malfoy lunged for the door, but Dumbledore held him back with surprising strength. "You cannot save him, Draco. The fiend fire has him now. We have to try." Harry argued, thinking of the brooms he'd seen in the room. The diadem is in there too, Dumbledore pointed out grimly. If we're fortunate, the fiend fire will destroy it. It's one of the few things capable of eliminating a Horcrux. As if in response to his words, a high, cold scream emanated from within the burning room, not human, but the death cry of the Horcrux as it perished. Malfoy sank to his knees beside the unconscious Goyle, his face ashen. Crabbe, he whispered. I'm sorry, Hermione said softly, genuine regret in her voice despite everything. Malfoy looked up, his grey eyes hollow. He was an idiot. But he was my friend. Another violent tremor shook the castle, more powerful than before. Dust and stone fragments rained from the ceiling. The battle has begun in earnest, Dumbledore said, helping Malfoy to his feet. Draco, you have a choice to make. What choice? Malfoy laughed bitterly. He'll kill my parents if I don't fight for him. Not if they no longer fight for him either, Dumbledore countered. The Order can protect your family, Draco, if you choose to switch sides now. Conflict played across Malfoy's pale features. After a moment, he nodded curtly. I need to find my mother. Go to the Great Hall, Dumbledore instructed. Professor McGonagall is coordinating from there. As Malfoy levitated the unconscious Goyle and hurried away, Harry turned to Dumbledore. Now what? The diadem's destroyed, but we still have Nagini. And we have basilisk fangs. Ron's voice called from down the corridor. He and Ginny ran toward them, clutching a bag that clinked with each step. You got them. Hermione exclaimed. And destroyed the cup, Ginny added proudly. The diadem's gone too, Harry explained quickly. Crabbe set the room of requirement on fire with fiendfire. Ron blanched. Crabbe's dead, Harry confirmed grimly. Malfoy's switching sides. Bloody hell, Ron muttered. Everything's happening at once. Another explosion rocked the castle, closer this time. The sounds of battle echoed from below, spells, screams, the rumble of stone giants awakened to defend Hogwarts. We need to join the fight, Ginny insisted, her wand already drawn. Dumbledore nodded. Miss Weasley, Mr. Weasley, to the Great Hall. Coordinate with Professor McGonagall. Miss Granger, your strategic mind would be valuable there as well. And me? Harry asked, already knowing the answer. You and I, Dumbledore said gravely, must find Nagini. And through her, Voldemort himself. Severus Snape moved through the battle like a shadow, his true allegiance still hidden from most of the combatants. Death Eaters avoided attacking him directly, while Order members and students dodged his seemingly lethal spells that consistently missed by inches or caused minimal damage. He'd just deflected a curse aimed at a third-year Hufflepuff when Lucius Malfoy appeared beside him, looking disheveled and desperate. Severus. Have you seen Draco? No, Snape replied curtly. Shouldn't he be with the Dark Lord? He was supposed to join us at the Shrieking Shack, but he never arrived. Lucius's voice held genuine fear. Narcissa is frantic. The Dark Lord is at the Shrieking Shack. Snape's interest sharpened. Not fighting himself. He has the snake in a protective enchantment, Lucius explained hesitantly. He won't join the battle until necessary. Says he's waiting for Potter to come to him. Exactly as Dumbledore had predicted. Voldemort would keep Nagini close, protected. I'll find Draco, Snape promised. Return to the Dark Lord. Tell him I'm securing the castle's inner defenses. Lucius nodded gratefully before disappearing back into the chaos of battle. The moment he was gone, Snape sent his Patronus streaking away with a vital message for Dumbledore and Potter. As the silver doe vanished, a cold, familiar voice spoke from behind him. Always the double agent, aren't you, Severus? Snape turned slowly. Bellatrix Lestrange stood there, her dark eyes gleaming with malicious triumph, her wand pointed at his heart. Bellatrix, he acknowledged coolly. Shouldn't you be guarding our master? He sent me to find you. Her smile widened, revealing yellowed teeth. He's been wondering why your occlumency shields have been so particularly strong lately. What are you hiding, Severus? My thoughts are my own, Snape replied. Even from the Dark Lord. Not for long. Bellatrix circled him predatorily. He suspected after Nagini detected that magical signature at the manor. Dumbledore's signature. Snape's expression remained impassive. Residual magic from the Elder Wand, as I explained. So you said. Bellatrix's wand never wavered. But then there was the Gringotts break-in. The disappearing sword that somehow ended up in Potter's hands. And most curious of all, your Patronus. Ice flooded Snape's veins. What about my Patronus? Rookwood saw it last week, carrying a message to McGonagall. A doe, Severus? How sentimental. Her voice dripped with disgust. The Dark Lord found it most interesting, especially when he learned about your childhood obsession with the mudblood Potter married. Snape's wand hand twitched, but he maintained his composure. Ancient history, Bellatrix. I serve the Dark Lord now. We'll see. She gestured with her free hand. He wants to speak with you. Now. Snape knew a death sentence when he heard one. Voldemort had figured it out, or suspected enough to act. This was the moment Dumbledore had warned him might come. With lightning speed, Snape slashed his wand. Sectum Sempra. Bellatrix was fast, but not fast enough. The curse caught her shoulder, sending her staggering backward with a shriek of pain and rage. Blood bloomed across her black robes. Traitor, she screamed, returning fire with a vicious barrage of curses. Snape deflected them, backing away. He needed to get to Dumbledore and Potter, warn them directly. The shrieking shack was a trap, Voldemort was expecting them. A killing curse missed him by inches, blasting a hole in the wall behind him. Snape ducked through it, finding himself in a collapsing corridor. He ran, Bellatrix's manic laughter chasing him through the chaos of the battle. He rounded a corner and collided with something solid but invisible. Potter, under his blasted cloak. He knows, Snape gasped, gripping what felt like Potter's shoulder. The Dark Lord knows about me. The invisibility cloak slipped, revealing Potter and Dumbledore both, crouched in an alcove. Severus, Dumbledore's eyes widened at the sight of him. You're injured. Snape glanced down, surprised to see a spreading bloodstain on his robes. One of Bellatrix's curses must have connected. Irrelevant, he dismissed. The Dark Lord is in the shrieking shack with Nagini. He expects you to come for the snake. And we shall not disappoint him, Dumbledore said calmly. But first, let me tend to that wound. There's no time, Snape insisted. Bellatrix is coming. She knows about my Patronus, about everything. Understanding passed between the two older wizards. Dumbledore nodded gravely. Harry, give Professor Snape the basilisk fangs. But we need them for Nagini, Harry protested. One will suffice, Dumbledore assured him. Severus will make better use of the others. Harry reluctantly handed over the bag. Snape took it, then hesitated, looking directly at the boy. At Lily's eyes. Your mother, he began awkwardly, would be proud. Harry's expression shifted from suspicion to surprise. You really did care about her. More than you will ever know, Snape replied quietly. Now go. Find the snake. End this. Bellatrix's voice echoed down the corridor. Severus. Come out, traitor. Go. Snape urged them. I'll delay her. Dumbledore gripped Snape's arm briefly, conveying a lifetime of complicated trust and respect in that single gesture. Then he and Potter vanished beneath the cloak. Snape straightened, tucking the bag of fangs securely inside his robes. He stepped into the corridor, wand raised, to face Bellatrix Lestrange one final time. The Whomping Willow stood frozen, its branches immobilized by Dumbledore's spell. Harry and Dumbledore crouched at the entrance to the secret passage, the sounds of battle echoing from the distant castle. "He'll be expecting us," Harry whispered, clutching the single basilisk fang they'd kept. "Indeed," Dumbledore agreed. "But not both of us together, and certainly not me alive. That gives us a momentary advantage. What's the plan?" "I shall go first, under your cloak. You will follow, visible, as the bait Tom expects." Dumbledore held up his blackened hand when Harry began to protest. "It is not a request for martyrdom, Harry. It is strategy. He will focus on you, giving me the opportunity to attack Nagini." Harry reluctantly handed over the invisibility cloak. "And if something goes wrong?" Dumbledore's blue eyes met his with surprising vulnerability. "Then you must finish what we started. You know what must be done." The implication hung between them, the final Horcrux, the one Dumbledore still hadn't explicitly identified. But Harry knew now. Had known, perhaps, since Lupin mentioned it was connected to him. "It's me, isn't it?" he said quietly. "The last Horcrux. That's what you couldn't tell me before." Dumbledore closed his eyes briefly, the confirmation Harry needed. "Not you, Harry. Just a fragment, attached to you unwillingly. When Voldemort tried to kill you as a baby, when his curse rebounded, a piece of his shattered soul latched onto the only living thing it could find. My scar." Harry touched it unconsciously. "That's why I can see into his mind. Feel his emotions." "Yes." Dumbledore's voice held deep regret. "I should have told you sooner. So I have to die?" Harry asked, surprised at how calm he felt. "To destroy the Horcrux. That was my fear, initially. But I've spent this year researching alternatives. There may be a way to remove the fragment without—" Dumbledore couldn't finish the sentence. "Without killing me," Harry completed flatly. "But you're not sure?" "No," Dumbledore admitted. "I'm not sure. Which is why we must destroy Nagini first, and confront Tom directly. One challenge at a time." Harry nodded, determination replacing fear. If he had to die to end Voldemort, so be it. But not before Nagini was destroyed, not before his friends were safe. "Let's go, then." They crawled through the passage in silence, Dumbledore invisible ahead, Harry following behind. The tunnel seemed longer than Harry remembered from third year, the darkness more oppressive. Finally, they reached the trapdoor leading into the Shrieking Shack. Dumbledore tapped Harry's shoulder, their signal. Harry waited the agreed 30 seconds, giving Dumbledore time to position himself, then pushed open the door and climbed through. The room was dimly lit by a single floating lantern. Voldemort stood by the grimy window, his back turned, pale fingers caressing his wand. Nagini floated beside him in a glittering, protective sphere. "Harry Potter," Voldemort said softly, without turning. "The boy who lived, come to die." "Hello, Tom," Harry replied, deliberately using the name he knew Voldemort hated. The Dark Lord turned slowly, red eyes gleaming in the shadows. "Brave, but foolish. Where are your friends? Your protectors?" His lipless mouth curved in a cruel smile. "Your precious Dumbledore is dead, and soon you will join him." "I wouldn't be so sure about that," Harry said, carefully scanning the room for any sign of Dumbledore's movement. "You've been wrong about a lot of things." "Have I?" Voldemort tilted his head curiously. "I know about the Horcruxes, Harry. I can feel them being destroyed. But you're too late. I have already begun creating more." Harry's blood ran cold. "That's impossible. You'd need more murders, more splits to your soul. Look outside, boy," Voldemort gestured to the window. "A battle rages. Deaths by the dozen. Each one can serve my purpose." He was bluffing, Harry was almost certain. Creating a Horcrux required specific ritual, not just any death. But the implication was clear: Voldemort would keep killing, keep trying to ensure his immortality, no matter how many they destroyed. "It ends tonight," Harry declared, raising his wand. "One way or another." Voldemort laughed, high and cold. "Your confidence is amusing. Tell me, do you know what truly happened on the astronomy tower? How Severus Snape murdered your beloved mentor?" "I was there," Harry said, playing for time. "Where was Dumbledore?" "I saw everything." "Did you?" Voldemort's eyes narrowed. "Did you see the true spell Severus cast? The one that merely mimicked the killing curse?" Harry's heart skipped. Voldemort knew. Somehow, he knew Dumbledore was alive. Surprised? Voldemort smiled thinly. "I suspected for months. Nagini confirmed it, sensing his magic. And Bellatrix has just confirmed Severus's betrayal." He gestured lazily to the protective sphere around Nagini. "That's why I'm particularly well prepared tonight." A whisper of movement caught Harry's eye: Dumbledore, the cloak slipping as he positioned himself near Nagini's magical cage. "So where is he?" Harry asked, trying to keep Voldemort's attention. "Where's the great Albus Dumbledore?" "Closer than you think, I imagine," Voldemort replied softly. "In fact, I'm counting on it." Everything happened at once. Voldemort spun, sending a killing curse toward the exact spot where Dumbledore stood. The invisibility cloak flew aside as Dumbledore deflected the spell with a powerful shield charm. Harry lunged forward, basilisk fang clutched in his hand, aiming for Nagini's protective sphere. The shack erupted in blinding light as Dumbledore and Voldemort exchanged spells of incredible power. Windows shattered, walls cracked, floorboards splintered beneath Harry as he scrambled toward the snake. "You were supposed to be dead." Voldemort screamed, genuine fear in his voice for the first time. "I'm afraid I've always been difficult to kill, Tom," Dumbledore replied calmly, despite the intensity of their duel. "A trait Harry seems to have inherited." Harry reached Nagini's sphere, stabbing at it with the basilisk fang. The protective enchantment repelled him, sending him flying backward into a wall. "You cannot touch her." Voldemort snarled, momentarily distracted. It was all the opening Dumbledore needed. With a complex movement of his wand, he sent a whip of golden fire slashing through the air. It cut through Nagini's protective bubble like it was made of paper. The snake dropped to the floor, momentarily stunned by the sudden change. Harry lunged again, fang outstretched. "Avada Kedavra!" Voldemort screamed. Dumbledore threw himself between Harry and the killing curse. Green light engulfed him, and for a heart-stopping moment, Harry thought history was repeating itself. But Dumbledore didn't fall. Instead, the curse seemed to splinter around him, fracturing into 1,000 emerald shards that dissipated harmlessly. Dumbledore stood firm, though his face had gone ashen with effort. "How?" Voldemort whispered, genuinely shocked. "Ancient magic, Tom," Dumbledore replied, his voice weaker but resolute. "The same that protected Harry all those years ago. Love, sacrifice, willingly given." Harry didn't waste the distraction. He drove the basilisk fang deep into Nagini's body. The snake convulsed violently, black smoke pouring from the wound as an inhuman scream filled the shack. "No!" Voldemort's anguished cry mixed with the dying Horcrux's scream. In a burst of rage and desperation, Voldemort unleashed a wave of pure magical force that blew out the remaining walls of the shrieking shack. Harry was thrown clear of the collapsing building, landing painfully on the grass outside. Dumbledore landed beside him, moving with surprising agility for a man of his age. Voldemort rose into the night sky, his robes billowing like smoke around him. "This changes nothing," his voice boomed across the grounds. "Come to the Forbidden Forest, Potter. Come face your death, or watch your friends die one by one." He vanished in a swirl of darkness, flying toward Hogwarts. Harry struggled to his feet, helping Dumbledore up. "Are you all right?" How did you survive the killing curse? Dumbledore's breathing was labored, his face drawn with pain and exhaustion. Not completely. The curse was partially absorbed by the damaged portion of my life force. The part already dying from the ring's curse. What does that mean? It means I've used up what little time I had left, Dumbledore said simply. Hours, perhaps. No more. The implications hit Harry like physical blows. No. There has to be something. There isn't, Dumbledore interrupted gently. And it's all right, Harry. My time was borrowed already. But we've done what we set out to do. All the Horcruxes are destroyed. Except the one in me, Harry said quietly. Dumbledore nodded, grief evident in his blue eyes. Except that one. I have to go to him, don't I? Harry stared toward the forbidden forest, dark and foreboding in the distance. Yes, Dumbledore admitted. But not alone, and not without understanding what might happen. Will I die? Dumbledore placed his good hand on Harry's shoulder. I believe that when Voldemort uses the killing curse against you, it may destroy only the fragment of his soul living within you, not you yourself. You believe? Harry couldn't help the skepticism in his voice. But you're not sure. Nothing in magic is certain, Harry. But your mother's protection lives in both you and Voldemort, since he took your blood to resurrect himself. That connection may anchor your soul to the living world, even if your body appears to die temporarily. Harry absorbed this, weighing the slim hope against certain death. And if you're wrong? Then you die a true hero, Dumbledore said simply. But I don't believe I am wrong. In the distance, Hogwarts stood illuminated by spell fire, the battle raging unabated. Harry's friends were there, fighting, possibly dying. And somewhere in the Forbidden Forest, Voldemort waited. I need to go, Harry decided. But first, I want to see my friends. Just in case. Dumbledore nodded in understanding. Of course. We'll go together. What will you do? Harry asked as they began walking toward the castle. Confront Tom alongside you, Dumbledore replied. One last time. But your condition is precisely why I must, Dumbledore interrupted firmly. I am dying anyway, Harry. Let my final moments have meaning. They walked in silence after that, across the grounds that had been Harry's home for 6 years. The grass was scorched in places, the earth torn by giants' footsteps. Bodies lay where they had fallen, students, Death Eaters, Order members. Harry recognized some faces and had to look away, grief threatening to overwhelm him. As they approached the castle, a figure ran toward them, Neville, his face bloodied but determined. Harry! Professor, he shouted. They're looking for you in the Great Hall. Everyone's regrouping. How bad is it? Harry asked, dreading the answer. Neville's expression darkened. We've lost people. Fred Weasley, Lavender Brown, Colin Creevey. The names hit Harry like physical blows. Fred, how would the Weasleys cope? How would George survive losing his twin? But we're holding on, Neville continued. The Order arrived in force, and the Centaurs joined from the forest side. Even the House Elves are fighting. Dumbledore placed a hand on Neville's shoulder. You've shown extraordinary courage, Mr. Longbottom. Your parents would be proud. Neville straightened at the praise. Voldemort's just announced a ceasefire. 1 hour for us to tend our wounded and collect our dead. His voice broke slightly. He's demanding Harry comes to the forest. I know, Harry said. And I will. But first, let's go to the Great Hall. The three of them walked through the damaged entrance hall, past rubble and bloodstains, into the Great Hall. The house tables were gone, replaced by rows of injured being treated by Madame Pomfrey and volunteers. Along one wall lay the dead, covered in sheets, surrounded by grieving families. The Weasleys huddled around a body that could only be Fred. Ron held Hermione tightly as she sobbed into his shoulder. Ginny knelt beside her mother, face streaked with tears but jaw set in determination. Harry moved toward them instinctively, Dumbledore following behind. Across the hall, exclamations of shock began as people noticed the supposedly dead headmaster in their midst. Dumbledore? Is that really him? He's alive. The whispers spread, turning into a wave of hope that momentarily overpowered the grief in the room. The Weasleys looked up as Harry approached, their expressions shifting from sorrow to disbelief at the sight of Dumbledore. Harry! Hermione broke from Ron's embrace, throwing her arms around Harry. We were so worried. Where did you go? The Shrieking Shack, Harry explained, hugging her tightly before being pulled into a rough embrace by Ron. Nagini's gone. That's the last Horcrux. He didn't mention the fragment in his scar. Couldn't bear to see their faces when they realized what he had to do. Mrs. Weasley had risen shakily to her feet, staring at Dumbledore. Albus? How is this possible? A long story, Molly, Dumbledore replied gently. One I fear we don't have time for now. Fred's gone, Ron said, his voice hollow. That bastard Rookwood brought down a wall on him and Percy. Harry's throat tightened. I'm so sorry. Percy hasn't left his side, Ginny added, joining them. Her eyes were red but dry now. After years of being apart. She couldn't finish. Harry reached for her hand, squeezing it tightly. Unexpectedly, she pulled him into a fierce hug. Don't you dare do anything stupid, she whispered fiercely in his ear. Harry couldn't make that promise. Instead, he held her tightly, memorizing the feel of her in his arms, the scent of her hair, the strength in her slim body. When they separated, he saw knowing in her eyes, she understood what he wasn't saying. Harry, McGonagall approached, her robes torn and face smudged with soot. We've been coordinating the defense. If you know who attacks again, he won't, Harry interrupted. Not if I go to him. Absolutely not. McGonagall looked to Dumbledore in outrage. Albus, you cannot allow this. Dumbledore's face was grave. It is not my decision to allow or forbid, Minerva. It is Harry's choice. It's suicide, Ron protested. You can't go out there alone. He won't be alone, Dumbledore said simply. Understanding dawned on McGonagall's face as she looked more closely at Dumbledore. The curse, it spread, hasn't it? Despite everything Severus did. Dumbledore nodded. It was always a borrowed time, Minerva. Now that time is nearly up. Severus, Harry remembered suddenly. Bellatrix was hunting him. Has anyone seen him? Grim looks passed between the adults. Finally, Lupin stepped forward from where he'd been helping with the wounded. Severus is dead, Harry, he said quietly. He took down Bellatrix and 3 other Death Eaters, but there were too many. Another death. Another sacrifice. The weight of it threatened to crush Harry's chest. He died protecting students, McGonagall added. Revealed his true loyalty at the end. None of us knew until tonight. I knew, Harry said softly. In the end, I knew. A hush fell over their group. The ceasefire was nearly half over. Soon, Voldemort would expect Harry in the forest. I need to go, Harry said, looking at each of his friends in turn, committing their faces to memory. We're coming with you, Ron declared. Harry shook his head. No. This part won't do alone. Not entirely alone, Dumbledore corrected. I shall accompany you to the edge of the forest, Harry. After that, we shall see. Hermione threw herself at Harry again, hugging him fiercely. You come back, she demanded through tears. You understand me, Harry Potter. You come back to us. Ron embraced them both, his lanky arms encircling them in a 3-way hug. We've been through everything together, he said, voice choked. It wasn't supposed to end with you going alone. It's not ending, Harry promised, hoping it wasn't a lie. This is just, the next chapter. When they finally broke apart, Harry found himself facing Ginny again. She didn't speak, just held his gaze with burning intensity before leaning in to kiss him, not a goodbye kiss, but a promise. A reason to return. "I'll be waiting," she whispered against his lips. Harry nodded, unable to speak past the lump in his throat. He turned to Dumbledore, who stood patiently nearby, his face showing both pride and profound sorrow. "I'm ready," Harry said. As they walked from the great hall, the entire room fell silent, watching them go. Harry felt the weight of their hopes, their grief, their love. He carried it with him, step by step, toward what might be his end. Outside, the night air was cool on his face. The grounds were eerily quiet, the battle temporarily paused. Side by side, Harry Potter and Albus Dumbledore walked toward the Forbidden Forest, where Lord Voldemort waited to finish what began 17 years before. Two wizards, one at the beginning of his life, one at the very end, united in purpose, in courage, in the willingness to sacrifice everything for those they loved. "I'm not afraid to die," Harry said suddenly as they neared the forest's edge. "I thought I would be, but I'm not." Dumbledore smiled gently. "It is the privilege of the young to believe in their own immortality, and the wisdom of the old to accept mortality's embrace. You, Harry, have somehow gained both." They stopped at the first line of trees, darkness stretching before them. "Whatever happens," Harry said, "thank you. For everything." Dumbledore's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "No, Harry. Thank you. For reminding an old man what truly matters in the end." Together, they stepped into the darkness, wands lit, walking toward their destiny. Chapter 3, The Battle Rewritten. The Forbidden Forest swallowed them whole. Dark trees loomed overhead, branches intertwining like gnarled fingers against the night sky. Harry walked beside Dumbledore, wand gripped tightly, every sense heightened. Neither spoke. The only sounds were their footsteps on the forest floor and the occasional distant cry of some unknown creature. Harry pulled the snitch Dumbledore had left him from his pocket, running his thumb over its cool metal surface. "I open at the close," he murmured, suddenly understanding the inscription's meaning. This was the close, his end. He pressed the snitch to his lips. "I'm about to die." The metal shell split open, revealing a small black stone with a jagged crack down the center. "The Resurrection Stone," Dumbledore said softly. "The final hallow." Harry stared at the stone, turning it over in his palm 3 times as instinct guided him. Shimmering figures materialized around them, not ghosts, not flesh, but something in between. His parents, Sirius, Remus, all those who had died loving him. "You've been so brave, sweetheart," his mother said, his eyes, shining with tears and pride. "We're so proud of you," his father added, standing tall beside her. Sirius grinned, looking younger than Harry had ever seen him. "Dying's not so bad, you know. Quicker and easier than falling asleep." "Your son will know his father died protecting him," Remus said softly. "Tell Teddy that, if you can." "Will it hurt?" Harry asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "No," Sirius assured him. "We'll stay with you until the end." Harry looked at Dumbledore, who had stepped back respectfully, giving him this private moment with his loved ones. The old wizard nodded encouragingly. "I need to go on alone now," Harry told Dumbledore. "You should save your strength for what comes after." "Harry," Dumbledore began. "Please." Harry met his mentor's eyes firmly. "If your theory is right, I'll come back. If it's not, then you'll still be needed to finish this. Either way, I need to face him alone first." After a moment, Dumbledore nodded. "You're right, of course. I shall wait at the forest's edge." He hesitated, then added, "Harry, you are the bravest person I have ever known." Harry swallowed hard, then turned back to the spectral figures of his loved ones. "Stay with me." "Always," his mother promised. With his ghostly companion surrounding him, Harry walked deeper into the forest, leaving Dumbledore behind. He could feel the stone's power pulsing in his clenched fist, keeping his parents, Sirius, and Remus visible to him alone. Their presence steadied him, calmed the thundering of his heart. He knew the path instinctively, drawn to Voldemort's location like a moth to flame. The connection between them, that unwanted fragment of soul, pulled him forward until he reached a clearing illuminated by flickering fires. Death Eaters formed a loose circle around Voldemort, who stood in the center, the Elder Wand twirling between his long fingers. Hagrid was there too, bound to a tree, face bruised and swollen. "Harry!" "No!" Hagrid roared upon seeing him, struggling against his bonds. "What are ye doin' here?" "Silence!" Voldemort hissed, before his red eyes fixed on Harry with malevolent delight. "Harry Potter. The boy who lived, come to die." Harry stepped into the clearing. The ghostly figures remained at his side, invisible to all but him. He loosened his fingers, letting the resurrection stone fall silently to the forest floor. His parents, Sirius, and Remus faded away, but he could still feel their presence, their love. "You've lost, Tom," Harry said calmly. "Your Horcruxes are gone. All of them." A flicker of fear crossed Voldemort's snake-like face before his features settled into a cruel smile. "Not all, Harry Potter. Not yet." Harry didn't flinch. He didn't raise his wand in defense. He simply stood, accepting what must come. Avada Kedavra. Green light erupted from Voldemort's wand, striking Harry squarely in the chest. Pain exploded through his body, and then, nothing. Harry found himself in a strange, misty place that gradually took shape around him. It resembled King's Cross Station, but cleaner, emptier, bathed in soft white light. He realized he was naked and, as the thought occurred, clothes appeared nearby. As he dressed, Harry noticed something else, a small, whimpering creature huddled beneath a bench. It had the form of a flayed infant, raw and wounded. Despite its grotesque appearance, Harry felt a stab of pity. "You cannot help it." Harry turned to find Dumbledore approaching, not the weakened, curse-ridden Dumbledore he'd left at the forest's edge, but Dumbledore in his prime, tall and strong, blue eyes twinkling behind half-moon spectacles. "Professor? Are you dead too?" Dumbledore smiled. "No, Harry. Not yet, though that moment approaches rapidly. I am here as a guide, a manifestation of your mind's attempt to process what is happening." "And what is happening?" Harry asked, glancing around. "Am I dead?" "That," Dumbledore said, "is the interesting question. You are at a crossroads, Harry. The fragment of Voldemort's soul that lived in you is destroyed, that pitiful creature under the bench. But you yourself have a choice. A choice. To go on, or to return." Dumbledore gestured around them. "This is, as they say, a way station." Harry considered this. "If I go on, what happens?" "You move to the next great adventure," Dumbledore said simply. "Whatever awaits us all beyond the veil of death." "And if I go back?" "Then the final confrontation with Tom Riddle awaits." Dumbledore's expression grew serious. "He is vulnerable now, but still dangerous. And I fear my own time is nearly exhausted." "You're really dying, then?" Harry asked. "From the curse?" Dumbledore nodded. "The killing curse Voldemort cast at me in the Shrieking Shack accelerated the process. What life force I had left is fading rapidly." "I'm sorry," Harry said softly. "Don't be." Dumbledore smiled. "Death is but the next great adventure, Harry. And I have lived a very long life indeed." Harry gazed around the ethereal station. Part of him, a small, tired part, longed to board one of those ghostly trains, to move on, to rest. But another part, stronger and more insistent, pulled him back toward life, toward his friends, toward the battle not yet won. "I need to go back," he decided. Voldemort's still out there. I thought you might say that. Pride shone in Dumbledore's eyes. Your capacity for love and sacrifice has always been your greatest strength, Harry. It is what saved you as a baby, and what saves you now. Will I see you again? The real you, I mean. For a short while, Dumbledore said gently. Long enough to finish what we started. Harry nodded, resolve hardening within him. How do I go back? Simply choose to, Dumbledore replied. It is, after all, your decision entirely. Then I choose to return. Harry squared his shoulders. One last time. The misty station began to fade around him. The last thing Harry saw was Dumbledore's smiling face, blue eyes twinkling with pride and something else, peace. Give Tom my regards, Dumbledore said as everything dissolved into white light. Pain returned first, the hard ground beneath him, the ache in his chest where the killing curse had struck, the smell of dirt and blood. Harry kept perfectly still, barely breathing, listening. My lord? Bellatrix's voice, unusually tentative. My lord, are you all right? I don't need your help, came Voldemort's cold reply, though his voice sounded weak, strained. The connection between them had affected Voldemort too, then. Harry felt a surge of grim satisfaction. The boy, Voldemort demanded. Is he dead? Silence fell over the clearing. Harry sensed movement, then felt a presence kneeling beside him. Gentle hands touched his face, his chest, checking for signs of life. A curtain of hair brushed his cheek as someone leaned close. Draco, Narcissa Malfoy whispered, so quietly only Harry could hear. Is he alive? My son. Yes, Harry breathed, barely moving his lips. Her hands stiffened momentarily, then withdrew. Dead, she announced, rising to her feet. Cheers erupted from the Death Eaters. Hagrid's anguished sobs cut through their celebration like a knife. Silence. Voldemort commanded. You see. Harry Potter is dead by my hand, and no man alive can threaten me now. Crucio. Harry expected pain, but felt nothing as Voldemort's curse struck his supposedly dead body. The sacrificial protection still worked, even now. Now, Voldemort's voice was triumphant, we go to the castle to display the trophy of our victory. The boy who lived, lives no more. Hagrid, you carry him. Let his friends see him broken. Massive, gentle hands lifted Harry. Hagrid's tears fell on his face as the half-giant cradled him like a child. Harry, Hagrid whispered brokenly. Oh, Harry. The procession moved through the forest, Voldemort leading the way, his Death Eaters following behind Hagrid with Harry's limp form. Harry kept his body relaxed, fighting every instinct to reveal himself. Not yet. Not until the right moment. As they approached the forest's edge, Harry cracked one eye open just enough to see a tall figure waiting in the shadows, Dumbledore, leaning heavily on a fallen log for support. Their eyes met briefly, and Harry saw understanding dawn in the old wizard's face. A small nod, imperceptible to anyone else, passed between them. The plan changed in that moment. Unspoken but mutually understood. Harry would remain dead until they reached the castle, where Voldemort would face not one, but two opponents he believed defeated. The grounds of Hogwarts came into view, the castle silhouetted against the pre-dawn sky. Defenders lined the entrance, students, order members, staff, all watching in horror as the procession approached. Voldemort amplified his voice magically, Harry Potter is dead. Your champion is finished. Lay down your wands and surrender, and you shall be spared. Screams erupted from the defenders. Harry heard McGonagall's anguished cry, Ron's roar of denial, Hermione's sobbing, no. Ginny's voice cut through them all, liar. Voldemort laughed, high and cold. Bring him forward, Hagrid. Let them see their fallen hero. Hagrid stumbled forward, still weeping, Harry cradled in his arms. Through slitted eyes, Harry could see his friends' devastated faces. Ron held Hermione as she collapsed against him. Ginny stood rigid with shock, tears streaming down her face. Neville had fallen to his knees. He died running away, Voldemort taunted. Trying to save himself while you sacrificed yourselves for him. That's a lie. The voice came from behind Voldemort, strong and clear despite its aged timbre. The Death Eaters turned as one, gasps rising from their ranks as Albus Dumbledore emerged from the forest's edge. That's impossible, Voldemort whispered, genuine fear flashing across his serpentine features. You're dead. Severus killed you. Dumbledore walked forward steadily, though Harry could see the effort it cost him. I'm afraid reports of my death were greatly exaggerated, Tom. Hope visibly surged through the Hogwarts defenders. Renewed strength straightened their spines, raised their chins, tightened their grips on their wands. Voldemort recovered quickly, his shock transforming into rage. It matters not. Both you and the boy will die today, permanently this time. There you're wrong again, Tom, Dumbledore said calmly. You see, Harry Potter is not dead either. That was his cue. Harry twisted suddenly in Hagrid's arms, dropping to the ground and rolling away as spells erupted around him. Hagrid's shocked face transformed into joyous disbelief. Harry! The defenders' voices rose in a chorus of shock and jubilation. Harry scrambled to his feet, wand raised, moving to stand beside Dumbledore. Hello, Tom. Ready for round 2? Chaos erupted. Death Eaters and defenders clashed in a renewed battle that spread across the grounds. Spells lit the pre-dawn sky in deadly fireworks. At the center of it all, Harry and Dumbledore faced Voldemort, who backed away, elder wand slashing through the air in complex patterns. How? Voldemort demanded, fury and fear warring in his voice. How do you both still live? Love, Dumbledore said simply. The one force you've never understood, Tom. The power you know not. Harry's mother died to save him, Dumbledore continued as they circled Voldemort cautiously. That protection lives in his blood, blood you took to resurrect yourself, tethering him to life. And I chose to absorb the killing curse meant for Harry at the Shrieking Shack, using ancient magic to sacrifice what life I had left. Sacrificial protection, Voldemort spat. Ancient, weak magic. The most powerful magic of all, Harry countered. And now you have no Horcruxes left. You're just a man, Tom Riddle. A mortal man. Rage contorted Voldemort's face. He lashed out with a barrage of spells so powerful that the ground beneath their feet cracked. Harry and Dumbledore separated, dividing Voldemort's attention. The duel that followed was unlike anything Harry had ever experienced. Dumbledore, despite his weakened state, moved with fluid grace, his spellwork beautiful and terrible to behold. Harry matched him, drawing on everything he'd learned, his reflexes honed by a year on the run. Voldemort fought like a cornered animal, increasingly desperate as his spells failed to find their marks. The Elder Wand, Harry noticed, seemed to resist him, its spells less powerful than they should be, its aim slightly off. The wand isn't truly yours. Harry shouted as they dueled. It belongs to me. Lies. Voldemort screamed. Draco disarmed Dumbledore that night on the tower, Harry explained, deflecting a curse. Then I disarmed Draco weeks ago. The wand's allegiance passed to me. Doubt flickered across Voldemort's face as the Elder Wand trembled in his hand. In that moment of hesitation, Dumbledore struck. A complex spell Harry didn't recognize hit Voldemort squarely in the chest, driving him to his knees. Now, Harry. Dumbledore called, his voice strained with effort. Harry raised his wand, Expelliarmus on his lips, but Voldemort recovered faster than expected. A killing curse shot toward Dumbledore, who was too weakened to dodge. Harry threw himself forward, not to block the spell but to grab Dumbledore's arm, pulling him aside. The curse missed by inches, striking a Death Eater behind them. But the effort cost Dumbledore the last of his strength. He collapsed to one knee, breathing labored. Albus! McGonagall cried from nearby, where she dueled Dolohov. Voldemort laughed triumphantly. So falls the great Dumbledore, he mocked. And now you, Harry Potter. I don't think so, Harry replied, stepping protectively in front of his mentor. Around them, the battle had gradually stilled, combatants on both sides turning to watch the final confrontation. It's just you and me now, Tom. The way it was always meant to be. So be it, Voldemort snarled. Avada Kedavra. Expelliarmus. Harry shouted simultaneously. The spells collided in midair with an explosion of golden light. The Elder Wand flew from Voldemort's hand, arcing high into the dawn sky as his own killing curse rebounded upon him. For one frozen moment, Voldemort's face registered pure shock, then the life left his red eyes, and he fell backward, arms splayed, suddenly ordinary in death. Silence fell across the battlefield. No one moved. No one spoke. Then, from somewhere in the crowd, a cheer erupted, followed by another, and another, until the grounds of Hogwarts echoed with victory cries. Harry didn't join them. He turned instead to Dumbledore, who had slumped further to the ground, supported now by McGonagall. Professor, Harry knelt beside him, throat tight with emotion. Dumbledore's blue eyes were clear despite his failing body. Well done, Harry, he whispered. So very well done. We need to get you to Madame Pomfrey, Harry insisted, though he knew in his heart it was too late. Dumbledore smiled gently. No, my boy. My journey ends here, as it was always meant to. He reached out with his good hand, grasping Harry's firmly. But yours is just beginning. Tears blurred Harry's vision. I couldn't have done it without you. Yes, you could have, Dumbledore corrected. But I'm grateful I was here to see it. He coughed, a thin trickle of blood at the corner of his mouth. Minerva, the school is yours now. Let it well. McGonagall nodded, her own eyes shining with unshed tears. I will, Albus. Ron and Hermione pushed through the gathering crowd, kneeling beside Harry. Hermione took one look at Dumbledore and covered her mouth, understanding immediately. Sir, Ron said hoarsely. We won. You won. No, Mr. Weasley, Dumbledore corrected softly. You three won. The youngest, brightest generation. The future. His breathing grew more labored. Harry, in my office, my pensive, memories I've left. For after. I'll find them, Harry promised. Dumbledore's gaze moved beyond them, to something only he could see. Ariana, he whispered. My sister, she's waiting. With one final, peaceful breath, Albus Dumbledore closed his eyes. The hand holding Harry's went slack. The greatest wizard of the age was gone, truly, this time. Harry bowed his head, tears falling freely now. Around them, the crowd had gone silent again, news of Dumbledore's passing rippling outward. Someone, Flitwick, Harry thought, conjured a shroud of purple stars that settled over Dumbledore's body like a blanket of night sky. He knew, Hermione said softly. He knew he wouldn't survive, even if we won. That's why he came out of hiding, Harry realized. He wanted to die fighting, not wasting away in secret. McGonagall rose shakily to her feet. We must honor his wishes, she said, her voice steadying with each word. We must rebuild what Tom Riddle tried to destroy. Starting now. The sun had risen fully now, bathing the battered castle in golden light. Despite the destruction, despite the losses, hope filled the air like a tangible force. Voldemort was gone. The long nightmare had ended. Harry looked down at Dumbledore's peaceful face one last time, then stood. There would be time for grief later. Now there were wounded to tend, dead to honor, a world to rebuild. Let's go, he said to Ron and Hermione. There's work to do. 3 days later, Harry stood alone in the headmaster's office, surrounded by the soft whirring of silver instruments and the gentle snores of portraits. Dumbledore's portrait had joined the others on the wall, though it remained dormant, it would awaken in its own time, once the magic binding memory and personality to canvas had settled. The pensieve sat on the desk, Dumbledore's final memories collected in crystal vials beside it. Harry had viewed them all, memories of Dumbledore's childhood, his sister Ariana, his friendship and falling out with Grindelwald. Memories of his greatest regrets and proudest moments. Memories of Harry himself, seen through the eyes of a mentor who had grown to love him like family. But most importantly, memories explaining what came next. Not instructions, Dumbledore had been careful to avoid that, but guidance, context, perspective to help Harry navigate the aftermath of war. "You're not coming down for the feast?" Hermione asked from the doorway, where she and Ron had appeared. "In a minute," Harry replied, looking up from the pensieve. Ron approached, eyeing the swirling silver substance. "Was it helpful? The stuff he left you?" "Yeah," Harry nodded. "Not all of it was easy to watch, but it helped me understand him better. Understand myself better too." "The memorial's tomorrow," Hermione reminded him gently. "McGonagall wants to know if you're still planning to speak." Harry nodded. They were burying Dumbledore beside the white tomb of his transfigured double, a fitting symmetry that would have amused the old headmaster. "I'll be ready." "Kingsley's been named interim minister," Ron said, changing the subject. "Dad says it'll be made permanent soon." First thing he did was order the Dementors removed from Azkaban. "Good," Harry said firmly. Dumbledore would have approved. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, the three friends who had been through so much together. "It's strange," Hermione mused. "Everything's different now, but we're still us." "Course we are," Ron said, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. "Just us without a megalomaniac trying to kill Harry every year. Bit boring, really." Harry laughed, a genuine laugh that surprised him with its ease. "I could use boring for a while." "Well, you've got it," Ron grinned. "Nothing to do now but finish school, find jobs, live our lives, downright mundane, mate." "Exactly what we fought for," Harry said softly. "The chance for a normal life." Hermione took his hand, her eyes shining with emotion. "Come on, Harry. Everyone's waiting." Together, they left the headmaster's office, heading down to the great hall where the school had gathered for a feast celebrating their victory. The castle was still damaged, still bearing the scars of battle, but repairs had begun. Stone by stone, spell by spell, Hogwarts was healing. As they entered the hall, a hush fell, then broke into applause. Students and staff, order members and allies, all rose to their feet as Harry walked down the aisle between tables. He spotted Ginny, who smiled at him with a promise of private moments to come. Neville and Luna sat side by side, both bandaged but beaming. The remaining Weasleys made space for them, George's absence beside Fred keenly felt but surrounded by family who would help him heal. McGonagall stood at the staff table, raising her goblet as Harry approached. "To Harry Potter," she called. "The boy who lived, and let us live too." "To Harry," the hall echoed. Harry felt his face heat with embarrassment, but accepted the toast with a nod of thanks. As he took his seat between Ron and Ginny, he glanced up at the enchanted ceiling. Stars twinkled in a clear night sky, peaceful and eternal. Somewhere beyond that sky, Harry thought, Dumbledore was reunited with his family at last. At peace after a lifetime of secrets and burdens. "You okay?" Ginny asked quietly, her hand finding his under the table. Harry squeezed her fingers, feeling truly alive. "Yeah," he said. "I really am." 1 month later, Hogwarts still bore the scars of battle, but scaffolding and magical construction equipment now covered the damaged portions. Students had been sent home early, but many had returned as volunteers to help with repairs. Harry walked the grounds with Minerva McGonagall, discussing plans for the coming school year. "We'll be ready to reopen in September," she assured him. "Different, of course, but ready." Different isn't always bad, Harry observed, watching as Hagrid directed a team levitating new stones into place on the damaged West Tower. Indeed not, McGonagall agreed. She hesitated, then added, "Have you considered my offer, Potter?" Harry nodded. After finishing his education through special summer courses, he'd received several offers, Auror training with Kingsley, professional Quidditch tryouts, even a book deal. But McGonagall's offer had surprised him most. Defense against the dark arts, he mused. Never thought I'd be teaching it. Who better? McGonagall asked simply. The students respect you. You've proven your abilities with Dumbledore's army. And the position is no longer cursed, as it were. Harry smiled at that. One of Voldemort's pettier acts of magic, the Dadak curse, had died with him. I'd want summers off, he said finally. To travel with Ginny during her Quidditch season. McGonagall's lips twitched. I believe that can be arranged. They continued walking, passing the white marble tomb now joined by a companion in deep purple stone. Harry paused, as he often did, to pay his respects. I still expect to see him sometimes, he admitted. Walking the corridors, or sitting at the staff table. As do I, McGonagall said softly. But his portrait has awakened. It's not the same, but... It helps, Harry finished for her. The painted Dumbledore was a shadow of the man, brilliant and wise, but lacking the depth of the original. Still, Harry treasured their conversations. They moved on, approaching the lake where the giant squid lazed in the summer sun. Students swam nearby, laughing and splashing, life continuing despite everything. Has Kingsley mentioned the international situation? McGonagall asked. Harry nodded grimly. Voldemort's influence had spread beyond Britain's shores. Death Eaters had fled to Europe, America, even as far as Australia. The global wizarding community was cooperating as never before to round them up. Hermione and Ron are leaving next week with a team tracking Dolohov in Eastern Europe, he said. I almost went with them, but... But your place is here, McGonagall finished. Albus would approve, I think. He always believed Hogwarts was worth fighting for. Harry smiled, thinking of all Dumbledore had sacrificed to ensure this moment could exist, a peaceful summer day, children laughing, the future stretching out unburdened by the shadow of Voldemort. Professor, he said suddenly. Do you think he knew that it would end this way? McGonagall considered the question seriously. Not precisely, no. Albus was brilliant, but not omniscient. I think he hoped. He planned. He created the best conditions for success he could. She looked at Harry directly. But in the end, it was your choices that determined the outcome, not his plans. Harry nodded, finding comfort in that thought. Dumbledore had guided him, but never controlled him. Had advised, but trusted Harry to find his own path. I'm glad he got to see it, Harry said finally. The end. That he didn't die on the tower, not knowing if we'd win. So am I, Potter, McGonagall said, unexpected emotion thickening her voice. So am I. They completed their circuit of the grounds in companionable silence, returning to the castle entrance where Neville waited with a stack of parchment, renovation plans for the greenhouses, where he would begin apprenticing under Professor Sprout in the fall. Life moved forward. The castle was rebuilding. The wizarding world was healing. And Harry Potter, no longer the boy who lived or the chosen one, but simply a young man with his life ahead of him, followed his friends into the great hall for lunch, his heart lighter than it had been in years. 5 years later, Harry stood in the headmaster's office, McGonagall's office now, though she insisted on calling it the head's office, watching the portrait of Albus Dumbledore with amusement. You realize they're naming it after you whether you approve or not, Harry told the painting. Dumbledore's portrait eyes twinkled. The Dumbledore Institute for Magical Cooperation seems rather grandiose for what is essentially a diplomatic school. It's more than that, Hermione countered from where she sat reviewing documents. Now the youngest ever head of the Department of International Magical Cooperation, she divided her time between the Ministry and Hogwarts. It's the first truly international wizarding school. Students from every continent, learning not just magic but understanding across cultural divides. My point precisely, Portrait Dumbledore said. I was never particularly successful at international cooperation myself. My disagreements with the International Confederation of Wizards are well documented. Which is why it's perfect, Harry argued. You learn from those mistakes. Your final memories, the ones you left me, half of them were about the importance of wizarding unity. Dumbledore's portrait conceded the point with a small nod. Perhaps. Though I maintain Minerva would be a more appropriate namesake. I have quite enough responsibilities without adding a school to the list, McGonagall said dryly, entering the office with Ron in tow. The castle renovations alone have taken years. Ron grinned, dropping into a chair beside Hermione and stealing a glance at her papers. As deputy head of the Auror office under Kingsley Shacklebolt, he had more freedom these days to assist with Hermione's international projects. The delegates from Makusa just arrived, he reported. Along with representatives from Wagadu and Mahudakoro. The signing ceremony is set for noon. The Treaty of Hogwarts, as it was being called, represented the most significant international wizarding cooperation since the International Statute of Secrecy. Born from the aftermath of Voldemort's reign of terror, it established new protocols for dark wizard tracking, unified educational standards, and more open borders for magical citizens. Ginny's going to meet us there, Harry added. The Harpies match finished early, they won. Of course they did, Ron said proudly. His sister had become one of the most celebrated chasers in the British League. A knock at the door interrupted them. Neville entered, his professor's robe slightly smudged with dirt from the greenhouses. Sorry I'm late, he apologized. The venomous Tentacula decided today was a good day for repotting. Quite all right, Professor Longbottom, McGonagall assured him. We were just discussing the Institute. Ah, Neville's face brightened. Luna's article about it in the Quibbler has generated enormous interest. Applications from prospective students are pouring in. Harry smiled, thinking of how far they'd all come. Neville, once so insecure, now Hogwarts' respected herbology professor. Luna, transforming the Quibbler from a fringe publication into a respected, if still eccentric, journal under her editorship. Ron and Hermione, their relationship stronger than ever despite demanding careers. Ginny, pursuing her dreams on the Quidditch pitch while still making time for their life together. And himself, Professor Potter, head of Gryffindor House, splitting his time between teaching defense and helping establish the new institute. Not the life he'd imagined as a child, but one he'd chosen freely, without prophecy or destiny hanging over his head. We should head down, McGonagall noted, checking the time. The delegates will be gathering in the Great Hall. As they filed out, Harry lingered, looking up at Dumbledore's portrait one last time. They would have built statues, you know, he told the painting. Golden monuments in every wizarding community. You would have hated it. Portrait Dumbledore chuckled. Indeed I would have. This is better, Harry continued. A school. New generations learning from the past instead of repeating it. The greatest magic of all, Dumbledore's portrait agreed. Knowledge freely given, minds opened, futures brightened. Harry nodded, throat suddenly tight with emotion. I still miss you, you know. The real you. And I'm sure the real me would say he misses you too, the portrait replied gently. But is also immeasurably proud of the man you've become, Harry. Not because you defeated Voldemort, but because of what you've built since. Harry smiled, blinking back unexpected tears. See you at the ceremony, Professor, he said, turning to leave. I shall be there in spirit, if not in person, the portrait called after him. Oh, and Harry. Do remember to visit the mirror on the 4th floor. I believe you'll find it particularly interesting today. Curious, Harry took a detour on his way to the Great Hall, finding the ornate mirror Dumbledore had mentioned. It wasn't the mirror of Eriste, that remained safely hidden, but an ordinary magical mirror that showed the viewer at their best. As Harry approached, the mirror's surface rippled, then cleared to show not just his reflection, but the images of his parents standing beside him, pride evident in their faces. Not ghosts or specters, but the mirror's representation of how they might look if they could see him now. "Thanks, Professor," Harry whispered, understanding the gift Dumbledore's portrait had given him. A moment with the parents who had sacrificed everything for him, seeing the man he had become. He lingered only briefly before continuing to the Great Hall, where the future of the wizarding world waited to be shaped, not through prophecy or destiny, but through the simple, powerful magic of people working together towards something better than what had come before. That, Harry thought as he joined his friends, was Dumbledore's true legacy. Not defeating dark wizards, not discovering magical properties, but believing, always believing, in the capacity of people to choose light over darkness, cooperation over division, love over hate. It was a legacy Harry was proud to continue, one day at a time. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.